Press start.
Well, let's start this episode 166. This is too many episodes, probably, but that's all right. That's what we're on. We're on 166 of the Current Gen podcast. I am here with Jeff. Hello, sir.
Hello.
I love this shirt. Wool. I actually watched a couple of Dudesies this week.
Oh, you did? Here's the thing about Dudesies, brother.
No way.
Yeah,
So
so
happy.
super
So
funny,
happy.
super funny. Kyle, what's going on, man?
Not much, yeah. Now I'm
that
thinking about
Marvel
Dudesy
shirt.
because you brought it up, so thanks.
Yes. Well,
Well,
Dan, how's it going, man?
Very excited to hear about the Goaty Redfall. I'm very excited.
Yes.
Please tell me.
As you
all
should
that
be.
stuff.
As you should be.
Yes.
And Derek, we are pooling our money to get you a shirt. How you doing?
The GoFundMe for Derek's shirts.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if you guys bought me a shirt. I still won't wear it, but I'll take it.
he'll drape that over
He'll
the
just
back.
drape
of
it.
the
I'll-
What if
So,
it's like
Derek,
flesh-colored
Why
ones?
is your shirt on the back of your chair? Oh, because I'm always topless. I don't like the feel of the chair, so
You're supposed to put it
My
on
chair
your, on
looked
your body.
cold.
You're like, no,
Yeah.
no.
You know, we actually did get a comment, of course, last week on the show saying, is that guy seriously, like, nothing about the show, nothing about the content, our thoughts on Star Wars, like, they didn't care about any of that. They were just like, is that dude wrapped in a blanket?
Was that in the YouTube comment?
That was in the
yeah.
YouTube comment.
yeah. And his name was
Nicest
like
comment we've
Jedi.
ever gotten. Thank you.
Yeah, his name is like Jedi Knight, and I'm like, dude, he's Jedi Knight questioning whether I should be wearing a Jedi robe on a Star Wars podcast.
This
Well,
Sure.
Derek, it really takes the tenet of no attachments.
I was
very
Yeah.
seriously.
I was
no
cosplay.
attachments to shirts or clothes or pants or whatever, you know.
It's funny, I've
so-
played a lot of Star Wars games, watched a lot of Star Wars content. None of them were wearing a blanket.
Yeah,
so-
true.
Robes and blankets, Derek, two different things.
That's okay.
They're the same to me.
All right, that's fair. Florida man. All right. Well, we've got some stuff to talk about this week. I want to keep it positive before we talk about some of, at least in the industry side, the negative. So I want to kick it off actually because we've really been video game centric last few weeks with all these new games. I want to talk about a couple of, like, actually one movie and one series that launched this week that I think all of us are fans of these franchises, of these universes. So let's dive in with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and then we'll talk about Star Wars Visions, just to kick things off with some non-video game related stuff, and then we'll dive into games and the good and the bad and all that stuff. So we'll do a spoiler-free take. I think 3 of you saw Guardians 3, so just get some of your spoiler-free thoughts on the third in James Gunn's Guardians trilogy. And I'll just, whoever wants to lead it off, it doesn't matter to me.
I don't even
So,
like movies anymore. It made me hate movies.
Yeah, it was that bad. It was terrible. So you wanted to start off positive, and all three of us absolutely hated that atrocious
worst.
garbage.
Unfortunately,
The
I'm friends with all of you on
worst.
Facebook, and I know for a fact you all loved it. So
Son of a
you
No,
bitch.
it was
Can't even
really
do
good.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really liked the first one, and
Yep.
then I didn't like the second one. I won't say I hate it. I need to rewatch it, but I didn't care for it. Is all I remember. This one I had like, I don't know. My expectations were, hey, I like these characters, so I think I'll like it. And I heard that it was decent, so I didn't go in hyped, I guess you could say. But the entire time, not exaggerating, I was like smiling, laughing out loud, and just I kept saying to myself, I'm really, really enjoying this movie. Like, this is a really good, like, they were even, I thought of Dan Fredes for a second. Yes, I gave your last name so people can come
I
after
mean,
you
you
later.
said it incorrectly, but that's fine.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it wasn't even
Fritos.
close.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's even worse, actually.
Wow.
What is it? Frida? I
Just,
don't know.
Just,
it doesn't
just
matter.
go, you dumbass.
Freitas.
Freitas. So anyways, I thought about Dan because I was like, man, I'm watching this movie and there's a few times it's pulling at my heartstrings, and I was like, ooh, they almost got me, but they're not
Well-
because I'm a man.
Yeah.
Well, that's
But-
called emotions, there, brother.
But it was, but it
Had
was,
emotions.
That's
it
exactly how
had-
I use that. Yeah.
it had humor, it had emotional scenes.
Yeah.
It had a great action, especially at the end. And I thought overall the story. So here's what I can remember about the second one. I absolutely hated the entire plot. I was like, this is so stupid, right? This plot was really, really good, I thought. I really liked that it was basically Rocket's origin story. They like do a lot of flashbacks to his story. And then also it was I think this is where the emotional part got to me, is it really honed in on like we're a family, and that's where Vin Diesel really, really mattered in this movie. 'Cause it's all
Yeah.
about
Well,
it's all about
As
the
the
family.
subject matter expert of family,
Well-
I'm so
well
glad
done.
he was there. To
Wait,
just
so did
the
Groot
story.
say like family? Did he actually say family?
I
He
am
actually
family.
just that's all he says now. It says family. We are family.
family.
We are family.
It's about family.
But
Family
overall,
strong.
really, really, really good. I enjoyed it a lot, and I am definitely going to go back to the theaters for a second viewing because
Ooh, that's
I
good.
just thought it was good.
Excellent. Well, and Kyle, you've got a Marvel shirt on, so and we've
Oh,
we've had so many
Oops.
conversations about the
Bias.
broader Marvel universe. Well, let's just talk Guardians now. Like, what did this movie do for you? Like, did it hit? Did it kind of How did it work for you?
Yeah, in terms of the series, I really like the first one. I'm the opposite of everybody here, where I didn't like the second one at all. But upon more rewatches, I like it more. But it's not any funnier. I think the comedy in that movie just totally falls flat. But I kind of like some of the stuff that's going on in that movie with daddy stuff. But this movie, I think, is
I do love
is-
Kurt Russell though. Like, I know it's not an
Yeah,
amazing
he's great
movie.
in that movie.
It's on the to me it's on the lower half of the Marvel tier. I don't
Yeah,
know if that's
same
where I'd
here.
rank it, but
Yeah.
it's not flat out bad. And I
I
do like
find myself
Kurt Russell.
apologizing for it more.
Yeah, I
For
hear you.
sure. But this one, like, there's no apologies necessary. You know, like it's just it's a totally great movie. Like throughout, I've said this 1,000 times. So for all the new people, this is the most fun I've had at a Marvel movie since Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man movie.
Nice.
Even though I found myself apologizing for a lot of the slowness of the last phase, like I was like, oh yeah, this is how it's supposed to feel like. Everybody's been right this whole time. So you know, like, yeah, this is how we're like. You're supposed to have this level of fun when you go to one of these movies.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard to capture those event, feelings whenever you do it 2 or 3 times a year, but like this really hit for me in a good way. So yeah, I really liked that. I thought it was super emotional. I thought all the characters were really well done. I know Chris Pratt's like the most hated dude on the internet, but he kind of slays it in this movie. So
He's
great.
great.
I don't really
I
know
still love him.
I don't really know
care
what to.
people say.
I don't know how people are gonna unpack that in their own way.
Yeah.
But
What do you guys
I
think his hit rate is on, like, hey, he really knocked out of the park with this role? Like, across all the roles you've seen him, like, what is his hit rate for you? Is it pretty good?
Not Jurassic Park, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty bad.
Listen,
He's not
The third
very good in those
movie-
movies.
culmination, Kyle. All right, that
Shut
third
up,
one.
Culmination of
Dan,
bad
don't do this to me
movies,
right
yeah.
now.
So,
Dan,
like,
I love
the
you, buddy,
one
but
with
come on, man.
the space one with him and Jennifer Lawrence was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They did the
Passengers,
reverse
yeah.
version of that story.
Their
for sure.
version of Magnificent Seven wasn't as good as the old school one. Although he did fine, it wasn't his fault. But like,
Yeah, I don't think he was particularly bad, but it's not a win. It's not a
Hmm.
W on your resume for sure.
I mean, to me, he's always just gonna be Andy from
Yeah,
Parks
same
and
here.
Rec. Like that's
Yeah.
the main thing for me. Is like I'll just
Yeah.
always be like, at least that, like, I love
Yeah,
that show. I do
I
enjoy
agree.
that character. Like,
oh, he's also the jerk in the office for James McAvoy at the beginning of Wanted.
yes, that's
right,
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
That's
also
true.
like the jerk in that like 70s Take Me Home Tonight like
Oh,
comedy.
the Topher
movie.
Grace movie.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean he's been around, but like his hits are few and far between, and I think that he knows that he's on the other side of his pinnacle. He's not.
Mm.
He's yesteryear's it man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you see him in these interviews or like the make me laugh segments that some companies will do, like LAD Bible or whatever, where they do some fun stuff, and I feel like he's a naturally funny, charming dude. Like he
Yeah,
seems like he's
I
very
agree.
naturally funny.
And I-
So
Yeah.
Star-Lord maybe is the character
You
that
feel
he
that
finally
in
gets
this
to,
movie big time,
Yeah, he gets to kind
where
of do his thing.
He's
little bit.
effortlessly, and I'm kind of cheering for his emotional storyline too, or just his storyline of like what the journey he's going through. He makes it easy for me to cheer for,
That's
despite
awesome.
the internet making sure they need me to hate him. But like, I don't know, it's just not happening. Sorry, everybody.
Good. I'm
Yes.
so glad to hear
Anyways,
that.
I really like the movie a lot. I agree with Derek. There's some really great action kind of in the third act of that movie, and there's just a lot of great laughs, a lot of great cameos, in terms of like actor cameos.
Yeah. like
Channing
James
Tatum.
Gunn-
Channing
James
Tatum
Gunn
shows up.
universe.
Sorry,
Ah,
guys.
God damn it.
Yeah.
You ruined the dunk, and now
His
Channing.
whole head is just a planet.
What were you
It's a
saying,
Channing
Jeff?
planet. Yeah.
James Gunn universe actors, if you want to call
Yeah,
them that.
yeah,
like
yeah.
Nathan Fillion has a bigger role
James
in
Gunn's
this and
alumni,
stuff like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
They're all here,
Dude,
You'll recognize a lot of
His
people.
I
wife
love
has a
that.
role. Ratcatcher shows up in this movie.
As soon as I saw Nathan Fillion's name, I was like, yes, because I'm a huge fan of him.
Yeah.
And
was
He's
so
not
funny.
like
Charming.
He's
hilarious,
so
but
funny. Yeah.
there's a few parts where he says like a line, and I'm like dying
He
laughing.
keeps
There's-
calling back to a certain thing.
There's an
that's-
ongoing idiot
has no
joke, which I
place in
don't
the
want to
conversation.
ruin.
Yeah.
I love
but
Nathan
it's-
Fillion.
it's-
Dude, his
it's
role in the
perfect.
Suicide Squad was so freaking hilarious.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, the arms guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Him screaming
So
on the ground
stupid.
while his arms are being shot is like one of the funniest moments like of all
It's
cinema
so
to me.
dumb. Oh, I love
Um,
it so much.
I love that. I loved it a lot. I cannot wait
Okay.
to talk about this movie at length. So yeah, highly recommend this movie.
And
for sure.
then Jeff, I know that you guys will cover this a lot in current cinema, but curious to get some of your
Yeah.
thoughts. You agree, disagree? Let me ask you this: your expectations versus how it delivered. Like, what was the
My
difference?
expectations are pretty neutral because the MCU has kind of just been there for me and
Uh-huh.
a thing that I feel obligated to watch because I followed them for so long. But their last few movies have not been. They haven't been singing to me, like, you know what I mean? They've just
Yep.
kind of been talking at me, and
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
and like I've enjoyed. I still give most of them a positive rating, you know, except for like Eternals, that's a mess. But like for the most part, I've enjoyed most of them. But like Spider-Man: No Way Home was like the last time that I had like, wow, this is one of the best
Smiling from ear to ear.
superhero
Yeah.
comic movies. Period. Like it's so
They
good.
did it. Yeah.
And Guardians isn't so much. It's so strange. These are comic book superhero characters, but it felt like all of the Marvel stuff and all of the comic booky stuff felt like an afterthought.
Hmm.
Yeah, to me,
because-
someone pointed it on online that like Ant-Man: Quantumania was trying to be Star Wars,
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
but Guardians of the Galaxy is Star Wars. You know, like in
Right.
terms of like its vibe and just
Oh,
like
interesting.
and everything like that. So
Yeah, and there's he just emphasized all the right things in this one. Like the second one was just a little muddy. I don't know what was going on. Maybe he was just in a weird place when he wrote it.
Well, Marvel can be very,
Well, he didn't really put a lot
Force,
of Marvel stuff in that movie. Like he didn't put
Yeah.
MCU stuff at large in that movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
He really only had to do it for the first Guardians, where they were like, "Hey, put Thanos in a chair and make sure he doesn't do anything." And he was like, oh, "Okay,
Got it.
I guess I
Yeah.
will." Like, and then he had to write the Infinity Stones thing. But outside of that, like Volume 2 and Volume 3, they were like, "You don't have to put any MCU stuff in here. You can just tell your own story." So I don't know what happened with Volume 2. It's kind of a mix. Like I'm kind of mixed on that movie. Like I enjoyed parts of it, but some of it I just can't.
It helps with some character relationships, but as an overall
does,
movie,
yeah.
it doesn't necessarily.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, whereas this one is like, especially after we spent time with these characters in Endgame and stuff like that, this one is like in Infinity War. I feel like he just knew the characters like he so freaking well that the emphasis was on the characters themselves and not so much. Yes, there's a plot, don't get me wrong, but like the main reason that the plot is happening is because of how tight knit this group is and like how much they care about each other. And
About Rocket, yeah.
yeah, it's a very personal journey for them. It's not so much,
Mhm.
well, we got to go save the galaxy. Like it's not to that level. Like it's basically by the, later on in the movie, it becomes like a revenge type of movie. Like at a certain point, like they could stop doing what they're doing, but they were like, you know what? What's happening here is wrong, and also F this guy. Like this guy needs to go away. So I mean, I don't know. He just sold every aspect of the story beautifully in terms of like the characters and the arcs and how everything escalated. And the villain too. Like this is like the best villain that they've had.
Oh, he was so good.
I mean, even Spider-Man: No Way Home didn't have a villain this good.
Really?
Like,
Is he in the trailer? Like, I'm not.
because No Way Home was like greatest hits.
Yeah,
right?
the High
It was like a greatest
Evolutionary.
hits.
Yeah, the High Evolutionary is the bad guy in
Yeah,
this movie.
he's
Probably
from
since
Peacemaker.
Thanos,
He
right?
played-
Like,
he
Thanos was the last bad guy that was of substance and interesting, I thought.
Yeah,
Who?
yeah.
Thanos.
Oh, Thanos. Yeah. So he's kind of like on par with Thanos, but he's not like taking a moral stance on what he's doing. I feel like he's more like a modern dictator kind of, where like they know they're doing evil crap and they're like, yeah, but like I just kind of want to do it. Like, like it's just I love that they didn't give him really layers in that sense. It felt like
he's
he's
pure bad
throwback,
guy.
terrible person, bad guy.
Well, and the stuff that they have him doing in this movie, you're like, oh, this is really easy to like actively cheer against this guy.
With every
like
fiber
the things that
being,
he's
you're
doing,
like,
you're
oh,
like,
kick his
well, I
ass,
don't agree with
please.
any of this, you know?
Yeah.
That's something else, because like, so all the Marvel movies, maybe there's a few exceptions, almost all of them have huge stakes. And it's not always personal. It's more about protection. And sometimes there's a personal element they inject into it at some point. But a lot of times it's just about protection. It's not super personal. And sometimes when you bring the stakes down, make them a lot smaller, like as far as like universe or world threat or whatever.
Right.
Sometimes like the personal stakes to me can be way more interesting and impactful.
They
Yeah,
could
I will
connect
say,
it
like,
better,
Captain
right?
America: Winter Soldier, you know. Is a
Well,
good
I will say
example
they,
of that, where it's
this
like
guy-
it's not about world
this-
ending like stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like a spy story, you know.
There you
But
go.
this villain is, I mean, it's still like Guardians of the Galaxy, and they do live up to the galaxy part because the villain does have his hand in a lot of pots in terms
Sure.
of his
Right.
influence over the galaxy.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
the scope is there, but like the
Okay.
main focus of the writing of it, I could tell, was how do we get these heroes personally invested in their journey, and not so much what world-ending threat is there, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there is actually a world-ending threat, but it kind of like, oh, by the way, the world's ending. Like it's just kind of like a, you know, it wasn't a priority.
It just
that
happens
felt,
to be
it felt
there,
so
too.
good. Like it felt so
Yeah.
fresh to have
Kinda
that.
it feels
idea.
like the video game, to be honest. Like it feels
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy video game.
Gosh,
like,
I
a
love
lot.
that game so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, like
Especially
that.
like towards the end when you get into some of the action scenes, I literally was like, oh, this is like the stuff they do in the video game. Like
Yeah,
this is really
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that
So-
game made me care about those characters even on an additional level than the two movies before.
Sure.
Done for me. Like
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm kind of glad I met. I got introduced to Mantis and the game after the movie because I like the Mantis in the game so much more.
Oh yeah,
Not that I
she's
just
such
like
a badass. Yeah.
she's so awesome in the game
Yeah.
and she's hilarious. And
She gets to do. I mean, she has. I feel like James Gunn version of Mantis does have a really, really good story in this movie.
oh cool, nice.
Compared to what he's done with her before, but she's still James Gunn's Mantis, so there's still like a lot of silliness and naivete and like. But
Yeah.
she does have a cool action moment where she's like, "Oh, I really don't want to fight," and then she just does like the most badass stuff, and you're like, "Oh, I didn't know she could do that. That's really cool."
Yeah.
That's cool.
And also, I gotta give a shout out to pretty much all of the cinematography, like the camera work, the editing, the production design. Like, even though most of the production is kind of like the sets are probably all CG or whatever, he picked a great color palette for like every sequence has like such a unique color palette. It's so freaking cool, man.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack, of course, is great. I mean, obviously, but we kind of knew that we should expect going in. And he picked not way more modern songs, but definitely from a more current era of music and not so much.
I was tapping my foot more in
60s
this
and
movie
70s.
than the second
Oh,
movie,
same
for
here.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that he
Oh, I like
chose
this
bands
song,
that
yeah.
I knew, but like he was like, no, let's not pick that one. Like he chose a Faith No More song, but it's not the one song everybody knows. It's like
Yeah.
it's that other song.
Well,
And this is
deep
definitely the
cuts.
most James Gunn feeling movie of all the Guardians too. So it's like it
Yeah.
just feels so much him. You know, whatever
Envelope pushing for sure.
whatever
for the
was
MCU.
like maybe he was like having to abide by before, it just felt like all those rules weren't there anymore. So it just
Right.
it felt
Nice.
very much like his movie. So
as he's leaving, he's like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go full.
yeah,
James
I'm gonna
Gunn.
really make y'all miss me, and I'm gonna go
Yeah.
over and fix
And
these
I feel
videos.
like he was definitely, because it was like a swan song, he was able to get away with more because, you know, there's an F-bomb that everybody's been talking about that happens in the movie.
so good.
And then the violence too is like next level, and there's some animal cruelty in it.
yeah.
It's all CG,
It's
but
dark.
it's still like
Yeah.
it's dark. It's a very dark movie for an MCU movie.
Yeah,
At
but-
times.
Might be
But
as
they
dark as-
balance that out.
Again,
He balances out. It's
I
such
understand
crazy
that it's
act.
heart wrenching, but it is all CG. Like if you go back and watch like the old Milo and Otis, which I used to think was this adorable little kids movie, like so
Oh,
many puppies
they
and
killed,
cats
like-
died
they
during
killed, like,
that.
Yeah,
17
Homeward Bound is one of my
each of
favorite
those
movies.
dogs
and,
and
like,
cats.
yeah, it's
There's
same
so
exact
many
thing.
died.
Yeah.
So many died.
Well, in this one, the main reason that it's so affecting is because the CG is so good in this movie. Like there's not that
for
MCU
the first
ness
time in
to
a
it.
long time.
Yes, for like
looked
it
great,
feels like it's been so long since we watched even No Way Home had some moments where you're like, this is a freaking green screen. It's like you can kind of tell. So
Yeah.
like it feels great to like I'll be able to sing the praises of the visuals of an MCU movie for once, like for once in a long time.
Right, let them actually take their time with it and like do it
Yeah.
at a normal pace.
Yeah,
like,
I think it was the old CEO that just got the boot like a few months ago, and now
Dude,
the older
fuck
guy's
that guy.
back. Bob.
They fired a whole bunch of people too.
What's-
Not
Oh,
like
yeah.
the big firings, but like a bunch
Iger,
of
I
executives
think?
that were overseeing.
Yeah, like Iger, I think came back. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
his-
yeah. You're talking about
his priority-
Disney? Yeah.
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 So his
Iger's
priority
back,
has always been for Marvel, especially quality, and
Yeah.
the guy before him was just like, just turn them out, man.
Yeah,
Four
yeah.
a year, 4 shows, 4 movies a year.
Pay
No?
the CG department the cheapest,
Exactly.
or whoever we're contracting it through, whatever company, pay them like
Yeah,
the cheapest thing that we can possibly pay
Right.
them.
that's why they've
But-
slowed their roll on this year, especially in the next few years.
That's why we
probably.
haven't had like a bunch of TV shows this year and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, Secret Invasion is like a month away, whereas if we were on the same pace as before, we would have been like 3 shows deep already, and yada yada, you know. But Yeah,
does
I'm
it
glad.
continue?
It's
Does
like
it continue the trend? I would imagine, since they're probably not spending a lot of time on Earth. But don't say anything if that's a spoiler. But does it continue the trend of them ignoring the giant thing coming out of the Earth after Eternals? Because there have now been.
I don't think that's a spoiler. 1,000% yes. Yeah.
This is the 5th movie.
Yeah, I saw something about that.
She-Hulk had like like a blink and you'll miss it like headline like on a newspaper or something like that.
Like an Easter egg.
But
it's an Easter egg, not world building.
Right? Yeah.
An Easter egg of an actual very important right in your face.
Something that would literally change the way tides worked and the weight of our everything about how our whole
world. There's been 4 full
was.
series and now 5 Marvel movies.
I kind of hope that they continue not acknowledging it. Like, if they just keep doing that.
They're like, you know what? And also, Eternals never happened. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, everybody.
Like, oh, that was set in the year 3000. Don't worry about that.
At least Guardians, or at least James Gunn in particular, was like, I'm not going to go anywhere near that planet, so we have no obligation to discuss these things that they do on Earth. Screw them.
Good point. Oh, man.
That's fair.
All right. Well, I'm glad you guys liked it. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and it is nice to see and to hear that Marvel getting its groove back, at least with this movie. It's not because you're right, Jeff. It's one of those things where it's like, no, we should be having this much fun and having this kind of an emotional roller coaster on more regularly, at least.
If this much money is going towards every project, everyone should be having a variation of hits. I just feel like. It's been a while since we had one on this level.
It's true, but I also don't want to be like suddenly turn negative, but the trailer for the Marvels played before the movie, and after finishing Guardians 3, I'm like, how the hell is the Marvels going to be any good compared to this? Like, it's just, I expect it to be fun, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to measure up to this experience.
Those expectations might be too high. You might want to bring those down.
Yeah, I'm going to bring mine are way down. Yeah.
You expect it to be fun? Ooh.
Do I got news for you?
Playful. It's playful.
Playful, yeah.
All right. Well, also in terms of watching stuff, another exciting thing released this week that I didn't know until I saw a couple of you post about it, and that was Star Wars Visions. The 2nd season has come out. I thought those, the first season just had some of the most interesting little characters, but of course, mind-blowing visuals. At least some of the episodes. Some of the episodes weren't really my personal, type of visual that I like, art style that I like. Most of them, though, I was like, this is amazing. I want a whole show of this. Like, this is so cool looking. So I imagine season 2 is similar. Or what do you guys think? Did it hit the same way season 1 did?
It feels more like Love, Death, and Robots than ever now. Because where you got kind of one style last season, it's like all Japanese animation styles, different variations of those styles, but kind of that. This is like, hey, anyone who wants to do something, come on by. We don't care what country or style or whatever. So you get a very different color palette, look, and for everything for every episode. It just kind of makes it feel more like Love, Death, and Robots to me.
Any returning visual styles from the first season? Okay, so it's all brand new.
I've only seen half. Is that true, Jeff? Actually,
I believe that's all new studios. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
It looked less full on anime as opposed to the first season. So.
Yeah, no, there's I just watched episode 5, which is what I got to, and that's anime-esque. I think that was the Avatar: The Last Airbender episode.
It's the Legend of Korra. The guys do the spin-off of
Legend of Korra, yeah, whatever. Yeah, but yeah, it looked very much like that. Very, very crisp, very good looking.
Nice.
But that's a Korean studio, which takes a lot of inspiration from Japanese studios. So it's it looked anime-esque, but
Can you remind me of the story of that one? Is there a way to do that without spoiling it? Because it's 15 minutes or whatever.
That's the one with the Jedi young boy who is being tempted by the Sith or whatever to be turned. And he's hanging out with the girl who's there. I mean, there's no, unless we want to go into the exactly what it's about.
No, we don't, because it's so short that people just need to watch it,
I will say, if you really want to, let's see if I'm going to like this.
Oh, no, that one is cool. They're on a journey
that one's really
somewhere.
Good.
Yes. Yeah. That one's really cool.
But the very first episode is really a big swing in terms of its visuals, and it just looks very, very.
Well, don't you think
good.
First season did that too? That kind of samurai...
the first episode's I feel like you're gonna know whether or not you're into this. After
first episode of the first season, I was just like, this is stunning. I love the way this looks.
You're in. After
you're gonna feel the exact same way with the first episode.
I feel like that's this way as well.
I feel like they kept the trend of the first episode being the biggest swing, because season 1 it was the samurai old school black and white anime style.
Yeah.
And then in this one it was they were removing colors from the environment, and a lot of the colors that they used had to deal with
paint motifs.
Had to deal with the balance and the force and stuff. And
it's Splatoon.
Yeah.
Oh, how dare you? How freaking dare you?
No, it's Splatoon. Thanks, Gaston.
It's Splatoon.
Spoiler alert, Splatoon 4 is coming.
Well, like, there's also, like, just
Splatoon
a really
4
freaking...
is in Star Wars Visions.
We're done talking about Splatoon now. So, this...
we are.
So the campaign of
It's
Splatoon
terrible.
2, it's actually pretty...
Let's dive in.
But yeah, the story is actually, like, really, really freaking good, too. Like, it just... I don't know. I felt like it tied the concept to the story beautifully. And it's actually not the only one to do that. Like, there's... I'm scrolling through the episodes, and I'm like, wow, I don't think I think I liked or loved, like, all of these. There's only one that I don't think Kyle's gotten to it yet. It's, like, episode 8 that I was kind of like, that's okay.
Wait, so all the episodes are out?
Yeah.
Well, you're speaking my language, brother.
You're really gonna like it, dude. I think
so.
It's really good.
There's like an episode that oh my gosh, Kyle, you did watch the Aardman one. That's the studio that did Wallace and Gromit and stuff like that.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh,
everyone
I saw that in the trailer.
I loved it.
It's just cute and sweet. There's nothing really that special to it, but like it's the animation
they
stuff.
got Wedge Antilles back to voice his own voice. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And the episode before that involving the two sisters, I thought was so freaking awesome. Like I don't know, man.
Would you say you liked this more than the overall first season, or
I haven't seen it all yet, so I can't say.
Okay, but Jeff, you're saying?
Yeah, I did personally. Like, I rated all of these. Like, apparently there's letterbox entries for all these because they're short films.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I rated all of these like super high actually. So like I just got something different from every single one of them. Even though some of them have a retread story beat at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's still it's a very Star Wars ending for, even if it's a repeat. It's a very Star Wars ending for a lot of the characters. Yeah. But yeah, the stories are just like so freaking good, and then like of course the animation style's insane. The last one is I think they mainly make children's television shows. Like I've never heard of these shows. SEAL Team and Kumba and Adventures of Zambezi. It's a South African company, whatever. But like the animation style is so freaking awesome. It's so cool. Oh man. This is just it's one of my favorite things. The first episode especially is just one of my favorite things I've watched this year.
Yeah, definitely. it was visually stunning, and again I just really like the paint stuff.
Oh
like,
yeah.
It looks like a moving painting to me. And they're like the painting of everything was injected into the story as well. It was about paint.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just it was very, very, very unique,
Yeah.
Last thing I'll ask you, and Jeff, you have your finger on the pulse of this usually with Reddit stuff, and maybe Kyle, you do too with your circles. Is the vibe, the chatter around this pretty positive?
Yeah.
I think so.
Big time.
I only ask because I know, as we all know,
attention.
For IPs like Star Wars that have been around for so long.
I mean the first one
become contentious real quick.
The first season was considered by a lot of people their favorite Star Wars thing in the Disney era. This is continuing that trend for a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
The people who are just like Rey Skywalker, blah, those people are really liking this.
Don't you love that? It's a chance just hey, we can all put down our lightsabers for a second and just relax.
Seriously, right? I think that I feel like the freedom that they have with telling short stories real quick is really resonates with a lot more people than not. So I feel like the love for this particular season has been really good, and everyone's been picking out their particular studios they liked and really championing and I really liked it. But they did that with the last season too, So
well, I love hearing it. I love hearing the positivity. So let's shift gears here. Let's talk about
let's bring it down.
Some of the new games that came out, and we'll dive right into the biggest release of this past week, and that was Redfall from Arcane Austin, which is not their main Arcane dev, right? That's not the main Arcane studio, or is it the main Arcane studio?
I mean, what it is they split off, so I guess it is a secondary one, but it's Arcane.
It's still Arcane. So it's the latest game from Arcane. Of course, it's the first game released by Arcane since being acquired by Microsoft. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but there's a lot of conversations around the quality of this game and all that kind of stuff.
My buddy Jimmy wants to join in on this conversation.
Jimmy Ryan,
Jimmy, he's here already. Wow, still got the boxing gloves on.
I mean, he's already here. We haven't even wait?
He's very interested in it. He's just very interested in what what the conversation is.
Here's how I'd like to
see if we're ponies or not.
Here's how I'd like to do this. You guys tell me if you think this is a good or bad idea. I first just want to talk about, hey, what do you guys think about the game? What do you like, not like? Let's just talk about the game itself. And then before we talk about any other new games this week, let's talk about the bigger conversation around it, what Phil Spencer had to say, what Starfield means. So we won't talk about the bigger industry stuff yet. Let's just talk about Redfall.
Well,
most of us at least tried it for a little while.
To backtrack a little bit, Arcane Austin, the only other game they've been credited with is Prey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then before that, they were one Arcane. You know?
Yeah. Okay.
But my point was like Austin
context.
still has like some of the main dudes from Arcane. So that's
their work philosophy may not be team A, team B, just two teams. Equal.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I only bring that up, and we'll talk about it with the bigger picture stuff. So we'll talk about that later. Let's just talk about the game first. I only fired it up for a little bit. I don't have a ton to add outside of saying it is a game that exists, and you can fight vampires. It does exactly what the description.
Sometimes you can shoot guns.
And sometimes you shoot guns. It exactly what the description said. Like as you read the kind of like the elevator pitch for this game, that's what it is. It's a looter shooter vampire kind of in this New England looking setting. I actually don't know where the setting is. It looked like New Englandish to me. I don't know.
Is it Boston?
I feel like it's Boston.
It just has that vibe.
It's probably made up.
East Coast town or something.
It has an East Coast town vibe to it.
But it looks like Boston area.
Like Rhode Island or something. Yeah.
And it has some of the art style did remind me a bit of what I've seen in some of their previous efforts, like a little bit like, oh, that's kind of Deathloop-ish in a moment, like whether it's a character or whatever, or a Dishonored character model. So those are the things
they kind of have their style that they
do kind of have a style.
Yeah,
it's unique, but it still kind of reminded me. It was reminiscent, at least, of some of their previous.
It actually is in Massachusetts, by the way. The name of the town is Redfall, which should have been a giveaway as to what would happen there, but it is in Massachusetts. Yes.
I thought I remember in, like
Massachusetts.
Is Redfall like a real like city though?
No,
like
they made it up for this.
Yeah, okay, so but that's what it was. Is that they'd said it's Redfall, but it's in Massachusetts.
Right.
So
okay.
I thought it was in that area.
Should have called it Wicked Fall.
And I know Derek played this a lot, and I want to get his thoughts on it. So Derek, why don't you tell us some of your experience with the game, good and bad?
So I'll talk about both. I played on Xbox Series X for 2 hours, and then I put 14 hours in on my Steam copy. Xbox to me is pretty atrocious. Like it really is. Like I thought it looks okay, but not great. By the way, I think art style for me, it looks like Back 4 Blood. That's why a lot of people are like, "Is this Left 4 Dead? Is this Back 4 Blood?"
Yeah,
it's not. But if you look at it, especially like when you use like my character I'm using, Jacob, he uses a crow, and when the crow goes out, it like shows you where the enemies are, and it marks them all red. That's also like Back 4 Blood and all that stuff. It marks them, and you can see them. But the way it looks is very Back 4 Blood and Left 4 Dead, but it's not like that at all. I also wouldn't really, I know they describe this as open world. It's open area. If you look at the world, it's not that big.
Yeah.
It's not that big. And then also, I guess it's a spoiler, but it's not really a spoiler. It's just that you go into another open area. And so it's not open world. Like they even tell you in the game, they're like, hey, if you do this mission, you can't do anything else in this open world.
Yeah.
Meaning they're moving you over to another area. So it's not to me open world. It's just kind of like open area.
It's
Dragon Age had bigger areas.
Job marketing this
game really?
Something. It's crazy.
Yeah, Dragon Age definitely has bigger areas than this game.
Yeah.
So anyways, the Xbox Series X version for me is very bad. Like 30 frames per second. The game is super quick. So when I was playing, I was like, oh, this feels like 60 as far as how fast everything moves.
Yeah.
But you really feel the 30 frames per second because, and I don't know if you guys experienced it, and you can chime in when you talk about the game. But for me, it was choppy. So I had to go in. I never go in settings. I had to go in the settings and adjust a bunch of settings on the Xbox version because, like, I would try to aim at something and I'd be like, oh, he moved over there, and so I would just try to subtly move over there, and it would just like. And I'm like, dude, I cannot freaking aim.
It was actually affecting gameplay.
Yes, so that's where I'm like, okay, I get the gripes about 30 frames per second because you've made this experience faster, meaning your character moves fast, the guns move fast, but your frames per second can't stay up with it, so it's very choppy. Visually, it's average. It's very average for modern day game. Especially one that's AAA. This is like again, if this was just like, for instance, what's the game that just came out that you guys love on Xbox?
Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh, Ravenlok.
Hi-Fi Rush. No, I meant Hi-Fi Rush. Sorry, because it was a hit. I don't know how Ravenlock's doing, but Hi-Fi Rush, like the standards for it weren't that high. Like it got announced, everybody came out, people
Shadow
played it, and they're like, they were like, holy crap, this is so good. But
basically a big budget NG, pretty much.
Yeah, but the standard for that game wasn't very high. This is a AAA, so you should be comparing it against other AAA like open world shooters.
Even like Dead Island. Is Dead Island a game I would think you could compare it against that and expect it to be better, right? Because Dead Island.
I feel like, and I think it's fair. Dead Island 2 is not a shooter, but you can play it as a shooter. But like, it's that same type of, it's a looter co-op experience in open areas. It's not open world either. It's open areas, and I feel like Dead Island 2 did it way better in Redfall. And this is coming from a guy who absolutely is enjoying Redfall, but I'm going to get to my complaints in a second.
It's just imagine having said that. Like, imagine yourself having to say that 6 months ago. Would you have imagined you would be saying
Dead
that?
Island
a game that got delayed?
We all thought that game was going to be broken.
A game that got delayed for over 9 years is better than an Arcane game. Like, get out of here. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
And that's the great that you mentioned that, Kyle. That's the other part of this is, for me, Arcane has moved up. The last couple of games I've played of them, they moved up to their top 5 studio for me. They've never had a miss. This is their first miss. So
I mean, Deathloop was good. You know,
Deathloop was loved.
Deathloop got
great quality
in the industry. You know,
it was.
So regardless of how we feel about it, that game,
it was objectively excellent. You know what I'm saying? Like we talked about this a lot, where like there's preferences, and we totally get that, but then there's just objective excellence, where it's like, hey, listen, this game wasn't for me. But I understand why it's getting 9.
Well, and Redfall Redfall is that way for me. So objectively, I know people roll their eyes when I say that, but objectively, this is a bad game.
Oh, okay.
And I would never fight anybody. The only thing I could tell people is like, oh, you know, maybe you didn't give it enough time or whatever, blah blah blah. But that's your choice. Like if you boot it up and you're like, this is trash. That's your right, you know. That's just like
thresholds, you know.
Exactly, like for indie games, I'll give you a shot. I'll play you 30 minutes, but you don't hook me, I'm out. This game, I was already going to give this game more than 30 minutes. It got my money. I was hyped for it. I was not going to jump in and just play it for 30 minutes. So I can look past some of the things, but objectively, I can list off what's bad. Graphics aren't that great. The gameplay is not that good. The AI is I'm gonna use my one F-bomb. Fucking awful. Like, dude,
Marvel.
Like
my one.
That's my one.
All right, Star-Lord.
The vampire. Dude, that F-bomb was like
it was so good.
Placed.
Sorry, it was
so
really good.
Perfectly placed.
Let's go back to Guardian. That makes me happy to hear about. Let's go back
right. So, man, that third act. Am I right?
But like, the AI is really bad. So the vampires aren't really bad. There are times like where they get froze. But I'm talking like overall, they're aggressive. They come after you. They zigzag. They're hard to shoot. The actual human AIs are so stupid. Like they'll hear you shooting and they'll be like, "I'm alerted," and they'll start running, and you're just standing there. I'm just standing there, and they'll just run right by me.
Yeah, I've had an experience where most of them were just standing there waiting for me to shoot them, and like were facing me and everything. Their backs weren't to me or anything like that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I truly did only put 30 minutes into it, like you just described, and I had enough issues technically that I was like, I can't overcome these technical issues with my interest in the setting or the gameplay. So like right away, I thought the frozen water on that ship, the style of it was cool. I was intrigued by what's going on. What is this? But like even as I went out, and I'm playing on PC, so I was ranging between 50 to 60 frames per second, playing at 1440. Generally, it's smooth-ish. So I didn't have frame rate issues. Like aiming and stuff was
chug
fine.
a little bit sometimes if you play for a while. Even on PC.
Notice it. I noticed it dipping a couple times, but not too bad. Yeah. And again, only 1440. So I'm not asking a lot of it. And then. But the water, like all these puddles of water, which I thought looked cool, like all these reflections and stuff, they would disappear and appear and disappear and appear, and it was not part of the game. It was like they were like it was not like something weird's happening in the world.
There's like, lighting issues in all versions, like the shadows, you'll see them like twitching. There's like this the whole time, and it's all the time.
Like Aloy's hair. I get it.
Yes, there's a lot of pop-in, like when you load, like I think it's the hub base, especially the first one.
Yeah.
There's like a big Redfall, like not, I don't know. I think you're in a fire station, so it's like a Redfall fire station, firehouse logo. It takes like 30 seconds to a minute to pop in, so it's just like that old school blurry, like pixelated graphics. So objectively,
in the fire station in the basement, that's the first vampire you face, right? So I was like, all right, let me see what this actually. And this is just it's just like the tutorial basically. And so I give you the shotgun for the first time. I shot him a couple times with the shotgun, and then he kind of got weirdly pinned by a wall, like the way he was trying to attack me. And I shot him, and he disappeared up through the ceiling. He was almost dead, but he wasn't dead yet. And then I was like, "Where is he?" But and the music was still playing, like I'm in a fight. And then he just comes running back down the stairs after me, and I shot him one more time, and he died.
He just came,
which is another weird thing, because they can like go through walls and all that stuff, but then like you said, he's just coming down the stairs.
It wasn't
like,
a
now
cool
you're
animation. It was like him in attack
this sounds
pose
like
as
a
he just like
glitch, not a not a power.
Which can be funny, you know, it could be enjoyable in its own right, but
in a Bethesda game while I'm playing Skyrim, yes,
sure.
that can be fun. You know, when I'm playing an arcane game, probably not.
Yeah, and I don't feel like I've run into any glitches that I've like been like, oh, this is funny, haha. This is more of them are like annoyances or just bad. Like you could like I said, objectively, I think this is it's worthy of its 50s. So I just checked the Metacritic. It's dropped. It was in the 60s, like mid 60s. It's now in the high 50s on both PC and Xbox, and I think it's worthy of that. For me personally, now I'm gonna get a subjective. I'm loving it. Like I have fun. Do I get angry at some things? Absolutely, but it's my type of game. It's what's
keeping you hooked? What is it that you're liking specifically?
I like the world. I like the guns. I like my character. Jacob's got great powers, so I like the power up. And you guys have known me long enough.
The bird is cool. I did see that one. Yeah.
You can hook me on the looter shooter. Like if you are gonna give me good guns and ways to upgrade my character, I'll play you.
Yeah, there's a crafting system and gathering supplies and yada yada. You know, there's a lot of Far Cry like parallels. Without it being fully open world like Far Cry.
Yeah, it's not overwhelming like Far Cry, so I get the comparisons to a certain extent, but it's very small. Like there's not like, and I'm not just talking about the world. Like there isn't like 80 gazillion question marks or exclamation points.
More of the parallels I'm speaking of is like the little doodads you're picking up like in the environment. You're taking those doodads and creating, new equipment or whatever. Like that's like the parallels to me.
But so I'm enjoying that. Like I'm not hooked on the story. I skip all the cutscenes, which are just like frozen pictures with them talking.
I wanted to talk about that in a big way.
Go ahead.
What the F? I'm not blowing my F-bomb.
Wait, hold on. Did you say they're just frozen like still images?
Yeah, it's like graphic novel.
Come on.
You know, yeah.
Come
this is
on.
it's very studio, guys, and like they can't.
Very rushed. This game is rushed.
Obviously, they couldn't afford, or there wasn't a budget to put cutscenes in their video game. Like it's totally crazy to me.
Come on.
Out of this world.
As they tell the origin
you could
story
claim artistic.
It's boring.
Yeah, you could claim artistic vision all day. Well, that's the way they wanted to tell it. I don't believe that. I just don't.
No, because even when you talk to the characters and their models and all that stuff, dude, there is not a big budget. Either this game was rushed, which I think it was, which is funny that they delayed it, and I'm still saying it's rushed.
Feels rushed.
And it doesn't seem like it had like the budget. Maybe when Xbox bought this studio, which again they still don't technically own them, and kind of took over, maybe they were kind of like, we're not going to give you any more money, and you kind of need to get this out. So let's go. And we'll talk about it later. I know Phil talked about QAing the game and stuff like that, but clearly this is a game. There is no way, unless you don't know anything about video games at all, that anybody sat down and played this game and went, this is ready. Objectively, this is really good. This is ready to go.
I know that David Jaff is a controversial character for some folks, but he had an interesting take on it where he said he said a bunch of things about it. But one of the things he said I played it for 3 or 4 hours, and he was trying to be very positive about it, saying I actually really liked a lot of the ideas. Arcane is very creative, and some of their gameplay ideas are great. But it felt like an alpha of an arcade game. He said it didn't feel like a completed game, so I'm not going to give you any more of my time. Like, it feels like an alpha build that you kind of hand over to executives to make sure you have funding to continue the project. It does not feel like a game ready to come.
It's not. I'm enjoying it. I like it, but I'm not going to sit here and defend it and say that it was ready, that it is great, and you guys are wrong and you should play it more. Also, let's be real. It came out at a god-awful time, too. Like, we just released Jedi Survivor. We've got Zelda coming out. Yeah. So people's patience, aside for somebody like me, they're going to be like, okay, it's on Game Pass. I'll give it a shot. Oh, this is shit. I'm out. That's going to be their take. They're not going to go, well, there's nothing else out. I'll give it some more time and see if it grows on me. This is absolutely a game that you have to want to like it to let it grow on you. Like, I have gotten to a place where I know the formula. I know all the missions. Like, I do all the side missions. That's one thing I will compliment, is that the missions are structured where they never feel like they're around too long, where it's like, oh my God.
Oh, that's nice.
A lot of them are quick hitters, so I can complete the side missions real quick, and then it immediately alerts you. Yeah, hit it and quit it. And then it immediately alerts you and lets you know.
No problem.
It immediately alerts you that you can go back to your base, like you've completed the mission. Some of them I've been like, that was the mission? Okay, cool. I didn't know. I thought it was going to be a little bit longer.
Hey, how do you like the progression system, speaking of missions and stuff, like as far as skilling, leveling up your skills and that kind of stuff? How do you like the progression system?
So the skill tree is not it's not terrible, but it's not real in depth or basic. Like, some of them are just more ammo for certain types of guns, and then you have you can level up your actual skills. So like Jacob is who I'm using on Steam, so that's my main character that I put 14 hours in, and then I don't know her name, but I picked the black girl on Xbox. I didn't use her long enough to really level her up.
All their powers looked interesting, to be fair.
Yeah, that's the thing. They took all the powers from their Dishonored games and then just kind of split them up with the characters. So that's another it's a positive if you were really playing this game co-op, because then you'd have to utilize your team.
Yeah.
If you let me say it like this, because my full thoughts now kind of connecting right now. Okay, so this is a co-op game. It really is. Like, they tell you can play it single player, and you can. I'm playing the whole thing single player. But the way it's designed, where they break the abilities up into each character has 2 special abilities, and they all do different things. They clearly wanted, from a design standpoint, 4 people playing this game, and then they wanted the missions to be not just run in, shoot everybody, you be a little bit more strategic. That's where the good idea exists, but the execution is absolutely horrendous. Here's why I say that. First of all, it's not necessary to stealth at all. It's not that hard of a game. Yes, you can die really fast, but it's not that hard. All I do is send my crow through. It lets me know where most of the enemies are. It doesn't always show me all of them. And then I just go in and blow them away. And why? Because the AI is terrible. The AI is like, oh my God, somebody's here.
The AI That's is all the AI does. Goofy.
It's so stupid.
Oh gosh,
and then there's sometimes where the AI is
vampires here,
super aggressive, and there's 6 guys running at you, surrounding you, and shooting you, and that's when I die in 2 seconds. And then the other thing is, this is what really, really irritated me. You're a co-op game with no matchmaking. I'm 40.
What?
I'm 40 something years old.
No. I didn't know this. Is that for real?
Yeah, there's no matchmaking.
So the only way to be?
I think so, but I don't know. So the only way I can play co-op with people
right now. That's great.
Is if I get my friends to join me at the same time I'm playing. I've been trying to do that for a week. We're all old.
Talking people into playing this game.
Yes, we're all old.
Yeah.
We all want to play our own games, and then also our schedules are different. I was gonna play with Nate and Rob the other night, and it was just both of us fell asleep. Like I've been falling asleep a lot, and then nobody's
Yeah,
available.
man.
So
Yeah.
it's I like matchmaking. I love co-op games, and I like to play with randoms. I know people don't like it, but most people aren't evil. Like that's what I did with Dead Island 2. Dead Island 2, almost everybody I played with was good. They just went through, did their thing, killed a lot of stuff, and it was fun. And that's what I wanted with this experience, and that's probably, out of all the things I've complained about, the number one thing I'm most bummed about is
a game that clearly is built to thrive on co-op should have.
I'm playing completely solo.
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
crazy,
like,
man.
I want to play with somebody. This would be fun with other people.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, that's strange.
I know that Kyle played it for a little bit. Jeff, I think you played it for a little bit. I already shared a little bit of my thoughts. Anything to add? I know that Derek was our main kind of Redfall player. But
well, I have that personality trait that gets addicted to quality looter shooters as well. Like I've sunk so many hours into Division 2, especially, and Destiny 2. Not to the level. Destiny 2, I have not played to the same level as as Derek has. Don't get me wrong, but I still love that type of stuff. So like, there were elements of that in this game that in my 2 hours that I played that I was like, oh, that felt good to collect that or kill that thing or whatever. But it was so scattered and few and far between that I couldn't justify sticking with the game because there's already a game that I'm obsessed with that I'd rather see through instead.
Exactly.
But everything Derek said was like, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just what level of fun are you having with the game, and if you're not having all the fun in the world, and there's other games out there that you want to focus your attention on, why
this is this is a game that will work for people like me, but anybody who was just semi-intrigued that's who you're really trying to sell to, right? You're not trying to sell to me. You're trying to sell to somebody that you can't sell yet. And anybody who boots it up and just gives it 30 minutes to even an hour, they're not going to walk away going,
it's not a great first hour for sure.
No. You're going to walk away going, delete. This was stupid.
Oh, I
uninstalled
it after that because it was 100 gigs. I was like, I'm not keeping.
Yeah, it's way too big.
It's a beefy game too.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to add on to Derek's point about the lack of stealth. That's probably my biggest knock in this game because, first off, Arcane has made stealth games and they've made them pretty well. That's like one of the big things is like the approach. But if you're going to have a player who has a crow that can scout enemies, why do you not have stealth in the game? Like it just. It's so baffling.
You can even go. What is it? It's not, the word's not invisible.
Yeah, there is like a cloaking,
like
type
cloaking.
Cloak. Yeah. So you can cloak, but you can't stealth kill them.
Yeah, like it.
Oh, there's
So
no.
it
way
even
to
seems
stick
like it's
behind
the
them.
lore
I can
of
sneak up
vampires
to somebody
really,
and all I can do is punch them, which activates them because they're like,
the lore of
I just got
vampires
Oh,
would
there's a
lend
person
itself
there.
well to instant kills. Like just
Right.
the idea of whatever.
This could be
just
fun
stake 'em
as a
up
stealth
like
game if they felt.
That's
like
why I said
but-
I think objectively reviewers are not off on this. I wouldn't go super low personally, but I am definitely more lenient when it comes to like complaining about games. I just try to enjoy games. I've said that before. I try to play what you make, and I try not to over criticize. But for this game, you have to criticize it because it is a disappointment objectively. Not
What about
just
Journey? Do you feel that way about Journey?
Yes. Well, Journey's probably the best co-op shooter I've ever played.
That's
I
true.
mean, the way
You're
people
shooting
were
your
playing
emotions.
with me,
The
way it was shooting out tears.
I played as Remy, by the way, who is the engineer mechanic or whatever. She has the robot. And
nice.
I only activated this skill. I didn't play that long, so I only activated the skill, the first one, which is basically telling your robot to go be a decoy.
Okay.
And distract the enemies. But it doesn't really work that well because, like Derek said, the AI is just stupid. So
yeah,
they're like, look at that robot. Oh, hey, there's a person, and they just immediately.
I do think, and I hate saying this because again, I know a lot of us feel this way that this should not be acceptable. But I do think you could have a good game after some patching. But again, why are you releasing game? I don't mind if there's a few bugs. I'm not expecting perfect QA. That's stupid. And when people do that, they're dumb. Starfield, just anybody who listens to our show, Starfield's gonna have bugs, guys. It's not gonna run perfect.
It's gonna have
Wait,
a
if
it's
the
gonna be
game's gonna have bugs, are you sure?
How dare you?
Yeah. So
And
I
it's gonna
don't
be
expect
more
games
amazing
to be
for it.
perfect, but don't tell me that you played this game and went,
Todd Ryan assured me that
ready.
it just works. All right.
Yeah.
So he assured me.
In perpetuity, right? When he said that, he meant forever.
Yeah,
All the games
You know,
that
we gotta take advantage of our special guest who's here. He's here. He's got his boxing gloves on. He's ready to fight. He already seems like has won a significant round over there
didn't even
in
have
the
to
UK.
say anything.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Ryan.
No.
Feels like a little bit
I'm trying
like
to workshop
Microsoft.
it.
I know Microsoft's appealing, and last week we all talked about how we think the appeal is going to work, and Microsoft will eventually be able to make the merger. We still think that, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a tough week for them. And now the Redfall release and all the struggles and the bad reviews, boy, it feels like they're getting kicked while they're down. So Jimmy, could you just take off the gas a little bit? Take it easy on Microsoft. I mean, they're in third place, and as Phil Spencer was quoted as saying this past week, he said, "There's no win for Xbox in the future in this console fight." I was like, "You shouldn't have this job, I don't think."
Listen,
yeah,
we just want Xbox to stop monopolizing the industry. All right, stop buying all these other developers.
They
all
can't
right,
even
except when we buy the other developers, we just that's okay. But when
that's okay. Yeah.
When Xbox does it, it's just not fair. Okay, it's just not fair.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna agree with Jimmy. So, as somebody who I've said it before, I always preferred Xbox, but screw that. I've jumped ship. I'm a PlayStation pony now. But when they first I know when they first announced that they were gonna buy all Activision Blizzard, I was like, yes, this is a big win for Xbox. I don't want them to own all this content. They don't manage things right. They've owned Rare for 20 plus years. What have I gotten out of that?
Yeah.
They own Killer Instinct. What the hell are you doing with Killer Instinct?
That's a great point, actually.
Why would I want some of my favorite games and developers to be ran by an incompetent idiot? And yes, I'm talking about Phil Spencer too. But just the corporation as a whole is incompetent when it comes to gaming. I feel like Nintendo is running things better, and that's weird to say.
It just feels like Microsoft took a lot of pages from the EA acquisition playbook of buying as much as you can, giving nobody any budget and lots of notes, and then everybody churning out bad games after being acquired by EA.
Yeah, you're right.
BioWare's not BioWare anymore, because of EA. Yeah. There's a lot of changes that happen through EA that just I'm seeing a lot of echoes happening right now where you get a game like Redfall, you go, that game wasn't budgeted properly. Whose fault is that? Well, it's Microsoft's. That's whose fault that is,
Well, did you guys listen to hear what Phil had to say about that exactly?
No.
What Kyle's talking about?
Please give specifics.
So they actually asked him, listen, I really did not like the guys on the Kind of Funny podcast. I don't listen to any of their content, to be honest with you, but they were all pretty obnoxiously butt kissing even throughout the interview. They asked a couple of good questions though, which I think were good, but most of it was these huge setups with first of all, Phil, just want to talk about how impressed you are that you're here, and they went on and on and on, and it was just guys, shut up and ask the question. So anyway, they did ask about what went wrong essentially, and then what would you say to fans who are now looking at the next project, the major one, Starfield. So his response to that, I got to be honest, it felt like he was throwing Arcane under the bus, as if there's some bad development team that didn't get the help they needed from Microsoft. He said that we need to do a better job when we acquire a studio who's already midway through development of making sure that they have access to all our resources and get the help, the support that they need. And I heard that and I was like, are you saying Arcane put out a bad game and you guys should have helped them more because they don't know how to do it? It just didn't sound right. And he talked about how with Starfield, they've been in since day one, then the full support of all the Xbox team and everything else. It was not a good answer. This is the first time that I've listened to Phil talk that I'm like, ooh, I don't
felt gross.
It felt pretty gross. It felt like we've heard this from Phil for what has he been in this role for 6 years, 7 years now?
It's been a while.
Probably longer, right?
I don't know, man. I feel like
he's in the last 2 years. He's now he's the president. He runs everything. Right. But before he was head of games, so he actually was the one that was responsible for If a game came out bad, that was his fault because he actually was
Why
the one
isn't it
that
his
was
fault
supposed
now?
You know all those great
I'm not
Xbox
saying it's not
One games that
leadership.
came out. Remember, guys? Name 5 of them.
Well-
Hurry, go ahead.
Hold on a minute, dude.
I mean, but when you look back at his history, it's like, was he actually doing anything good this entire time? Other than
I think he's really good.
Mess up and admit that the reason that he's not doing so well at his job is because he's a gamer like the rest of us, and he's busy with all the fucking games that came out.
No, guys, I was
had
playing Jedi Knight this week, or
He's
Jedi
like, I'm doing New Game Plus on God of
War.
War.
Wrap this up. Jedi Survivors League.
Yeah, Jedi Survivor. There you go.
Because we know he games. Like he's very, very.
He's just hitting. He's hitting that bomb real hard, and he's playing games.
I can't be bothered with all this.
Like, come on, guys.
Anyway,
sorry.
I think what I was trying to say is like he is responsible. I'm not taking the responsibility away from him, but I'm saying he's not in the role where he would actually go to Austin and actually view the game. Now. I forgot the guy's name, but he's been in that role for 2 years, and he's the one that would actually need to be like responsible for going and checking on the games and where they're at and all that.
I have a hard time believing that Phil didn't.
Did you guys watch that Sea of Thieves thing though?
Which one?
The documentary that came out? Yeah. So they showed the game to him. Like they made a presentation to everybody, and Phil Spencer was one of the people there, and they had
might
him
have been
play.
in that role Derek's talking about during that. That was 2018.
So you're saying with Bethesda, they're just like there's too much.
Yeah, he's saying that Phil has been promoted since then.
Since then, he's gotten a promotion where that's not his scope anymore. Yeah.
I'm saying that's not his role. I'm not saying he hasn't seen Redfall, but I also know in the interview he did say, and this I appreciate because they need to knock this shit off, is they showed everybody, including us, the gamers, they always showed Redfall on PC playing at 60 frames per second, ultra settings, okay? Most of us, I would say, would be able to watch gameplay and go, okay, it's probably PC version, so it's probably not going to look as good, but here's the difference. Not one time did any of us think, but on console it's probably going to run at 30 frames per second. It's probably going to be broken. Like, they showed off a good version of it, and then they released a version that's half the frames per second, looks worse, has all these bugs. Like, they were hiding a bunch of stuff. So that's why when they got into the whole QA stuff, and they're like, I appreciate how they approached this question, because they're like, Phil, we know how this works. We know
they basically
you have
said, "Do you not
teams
like consoles anymore?" That's kind of what they asked him. Like, you guys seem to only care about PC now. Like because they framed it the way you just said.
That's awesome. Okay.
They did. That was one of their good questions, I thought. Even though, again, it took them 5 hours to get.
It's so funny, Tim, that you said that they teed up a lot of softball questions, because a lot of people I saw, especially in the group, were like, "Wow, they were asking some really hard hitting questions." And the bits that I saw, that was not the case.
Dude.
So
They
I
did
appreciate
ask.
you validating that for me.
They did.
They did ask hard questions, but what Tim's saying that I would agree with is they basically were like, hey, we just want you to know you're really amazing. You're doing really good. Xbox is great. But can we just ask you what happened? You know, that type of stuff.
Dude, that's got to be a lot of kind of funny doesn't want to lose access to Microsoft.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
and Xbox.
I mean, that's kind of why that whole Colin thing happened, to be honest. So
it is. Yeah.
So here's where I think some of us, we were all kind of saying the same thing in the chat, but I do think all of us heard it our own way, right? I watched the whole thing, so I didn't watch just clips. Yeah. I watched the full 40 minutes or whatever it was, and I felt like Phil's demeanor, I think what he wanted to show, I'm not saying he's putting on an act, but to a certain extent, I feel like it was. I think
if you're a CEO of anything, or if you're that high up, you are always putting on an act. But I get what you're saying.
It was scripted by
think
PR
what he was trying to show was he didn't want to come on there and be like, yeah, things are great. You know, I don't think he wanted to do that. I think he wanted people to go, Phil's really upset of where things are.
He's mad like we are, which has always been his tactic. Hey guys, I'm one of you. That's always been his whole entire personality.
And I agree with Kyle. I think that was his tactic. I think his tactic was, I want you guys to sympathize with me because I'm sympathizing with you because I feel your pain.
I want to play good games. I want Redfall to
So
be
he's
good.
like the CEO who came out of the building and joined the protesters who are marching around, and he's holding a sign with them. He's like, yeah,
Redfall sucks.
That would be like,
we should do better.
That would be like Bill Gates coming out and being like, yeah, I'm mad about this new operating system, guys. and pretending like he doesn't use his own proprietary, amazing,
Sure.
I know.
Windows
like
13,
coded
yeah.
version of it. I'm out there using XP just like Vista, just like you guys.
Vista.
Oh, and I'm
Still
gonna use mine now. Fuck off, Bill. Like there's no way. Like
Still
that's not
using
what's
98.
happening.
That's your F-bomb. That's your F-bomb.
I did. That's my one.
He can't. He's just not the every. I just. It's tougher to buy the facade anymore. To me, at least.
He's not the everyman we thought he was.
CEO. Because there is no such thing as not.
He's the CEO. Yeah, he's the CEO.
He did a really good job of putting up the facade, and I knew it was a facade. Don't get me wrong, but it's all about selling it.
Right.
He's not selling it anymore. It's not. I'm not buying.
You're not buying
like,
it.
Like I don't for a second think that Jim Ryan is a gamer, or do I care if he is or not? But he doesn't pretend to be one. Like Phil Spencer, I've always wondered. I wonder if Phil Spencer's really a gamer. He sounds like one sometimes. Like I've always wondered.
Jimmy is in the business of gaming, and Phil Spencer is a fan of gaming. He feels more and more like a robot.
It's a real Cinderella story, guys. That's why they told that story over and over and over again. He came up through the ranks
that way in this interview. By the way, he did describe. He still described
that he's Cinderella.
As he was a fan before the role that he has now, and he was a gamer before all that. So he still describes.
It's your classic "I worked up from the mailroom" type of story. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It is. It really is. And I get that's a great story, but it's also a story.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he doesn't game or anything, but I know that parts of his origin story have to be embellished to kind of create a cool, alluring CEO type that we're all going to be, or not. I keep on saying CEO, but like head of whatever type that we all attach to in some way or relate to in some way. Agreed. So maybe we forgive him for his follies that he completely has done for the last 8 years straight. So.
I can't. I'm a patient person, but we're going on like, what is this? 6-7 years of incompetence. Yes, they've had some hits. I absolutely love Halo Infinite, and it reviewed really well, but we also know, and I'm not just talking about it's bare bones now, but they still dropped the ball on a lot of things on the launch. Even the co-op.
The legacy of that game will be that it's a failed Halo entry. Like, sadly, and I like that. I think all of us here like that game.
When it initially launched, people were like, "I love this campaign. The multiplayer feels great." But then they started
early. It's free.
They started releasing the reality news, and that's we're not going to do online. Or no, we're not going to do
campaign co-op.
Couch co-op.
Oh, that's right, couch co-op.
We're going to do that. They didn't have online multiplayer at launch, or I should say online co-op at launch. So I had to play the campaign, which I was fine with solo. Then they released it later for me to play it again with somebody else. But my point is,
a year later, it was stupid.
Yeah,
that's bad.
The only game in the last 5 or 6 years that I'm talking, they're big bad boys. I'm not talking about hi-fi and stuff like that. That they've released that I could say was like legit, like no issues, came out perfectly, reviewed.
Forza 5.
Yeah. But is that that's a racer, guys? Like I love it.
It's using the same mechanics, engine, assets, and everything from the last 4 games in that franchise.
Like nobody's gonna talk about Forza Horizon 5 in the same way that they would talk about a God of War.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to be like, that story-driven Forza Horizon 5 touched me the way God of War touched me. No, it didn't.
Don't they own Double Fine too? So like Psychonauts 2 is technically an Xbox published game. Microsoft published game.
Yeah, but
that was a really great
one. I would not call that a AAA win, like to the level that Forza.
I wouldn't either. I put that in the same bucket as like a Hi-Fi Rush, where it's like
more and anything.
They've released good games. I'm not saying that.
Pentiment is another niche game that was excellent.
They're not doing it consistently. Like here's why. Again, as well. I joked about being a pony, but I'm not a pony. But I like PlayStation and I respect them because they're consistent. And even when they release a bad game, like Tim brought up Days Gone, that's not a bad game, but it's not to their standard.
They needed a little sprucing up there, which then they got to that point.
It's a great game. I absolutely love it. I beat it twice. But the point is that even when they mess up, they still always move on, and it's always good. Like it's not mess up to another mess up to another mess up. Wait a whole year. Yeah. By the way, guys, we got what in 2022 from Xbox?
Just
what about 2021? What about 2020?
just
what about
games.
2019? What about 2018? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been that story for a
So
while now.
that's where I'm at with them. That I'm like, no, Phil, you don't. And he did try to. Again, he was like, "Don't believe me. Wait for our actions."
Yeah, he
of
said
course
that a lot.
Say
don't believe us till we show you. He did say that a
yeah,
lot.
but that's all he can say because he knows I've been talking for 6 or 7 years.
Well, and like their last really big swing and big win was what Sunset Overdrive, which was like a Sony dev now, you know. So it's like, which is so funny. It's like when you think about their last big, like huge, like kind of swing that's a new IP with a dev they haven't worked for before. That dev is owned by Sony now, you know. So it's like, you know, we can talk about Quantum Break or whatever, but that's still a niche, you know, like type of game, I would say. Like that wasn't a mass appeal video game.
Right.
Sunset Overdrive was though, you know, and like that was like what 10 years ago now, you know? Like what are we doing here, guys? Like they only make racers now? Like that's every year they'll come up with a Forza and we'll all say really nice things about a Forza game, but like what are we doing? Like what are we doing here?
I want to get you guys' thoughts on one more thing that he said.
Where's all these other games?
You know, it was definitely a theme of sad Phil. That was definitely the theme of the interview.
Yeah, that's
which we all piled on in the chat for sure.
Right. Which it's a tactic. I'm not saying it's a good one or a bad one, but it is a tactic you could take, like the sympathy and the kind of like trying to show some element of resolve to make it better through our actions. Blah blah blah. I could see what he was trying to do. But I mean, do you guys? I'm just thinking about all the games they have coming up. Do you guys feel like you trust anything that like, for example, they have their showcase coming up, and all the games that you guys have even mentioned in the chat, whether it was, what was it? Is it Avowed? Right? You got Fable.
Oh my God, Avowed.
Perfect Dark. All these games.
Hell is Perfect Dark?
I would not even call anything that Obsidian has announced AAA to the level that they want it to be. So like Avowed and Outer Worlds 2. I'm gonna love those games, but to me, like, because Obsidian doesn't miss to me, like they just don't. I'm sorry, but I don't to me, I just don't put them in the AAA like God of War bracket or something like that. You know, like I don't know, they're just different.
Well, I have to see what Avow is, because that might be something bigger. I would agree with you on Outer Worlds. It's like for an RPG, it's legit, but it's still not like I don't get like Final Fantasy 16 vibes, meaning like it's that grandiose and it's that AAA.
Yeah, that's all I mean by that. Not like a negative in a negative way. It's just the scale of the game, really.
I just feel like I think what Tim was gonna ask, and if I'm wrong, correct me, was do you guys have faith in these upcoming projects under Microsoft? I have faith in Bethesda and their individual studios. Now, I understand that I just got burnt by Arcane to a certain extent. Yeah. But I don't have faith in Xbox. So I'm not going to listen to anything they say. They can shut the fuck up. There's my second F-bomb. They can shut up.
You're not allowed. That's next week's. That's
rated R. Rated R.
If any of my kids listen to this, I'm sorry. Dad's not the one doing this, all right? Continue.
I still love Jesus. But like, so
I still want to hear Tim's one F-bomb. Where's Tim's one F-bomb?
I took it. I took it.
He stole it from me.
But my point is that I still have faith in the studios, because I don't think they'll make bad games. I think they'll do a good job. But I'm not going to listen to Microsoft. I'm not going to listen to Phil anymore. I don't care about them. I only care about what Bethesda and those guys are doing, and I do trust them. Like, I don't think Starfield's going to come out and be Redfall just because Redfall was Redfall. Like,
I'm glad you're feeling trust. I don't even feel that, because I don't think any studio they've acquired has delivered to the level they used to.
Well,
so I'm still waiting for that. So I'm glad you trust them, but I still don't
yet. Let me talk about the big elephant in the room, which is Starfield. You know, like Dan, I think maybe you and I hold the corner for like, you know, big Skyrim, you know, bros here on the podcast.
Yeah.
Huge Skyrim fan. Couldn't be a bigger Fallout fan. Like I'm a big fan of that style of video game. And like I'm a little shooked right now about Starfield. Yeah. And not just because Microsoft is screwing up. Todd Howard is a classic like liar, you know, about this
He's
stuff.
a Phil Spencer.
Hey guys, like
he comes out in the leather jacket. He's like, hey, you know?
And I actually like Todd Howard.
Like, everything's gonna be fine.
We've turned him into a cartoon character a little bit, but like,
of course,
they have lied about the functionality of like their games. Not lied, but like not addressed.
Misled, yeah.
misled, but for their entire career, Morrowind was a broken piece of shit that we still play and love, Oblivion was so horrifically glitchy, but we still like that game. Skyrim to this day has been released 13 different times. It's still got glitches, Like, it's one of those things where it's like, so I can't trust Todd Howard and I can't trust Phil Spencer. Who is going to talk during the Starfield presentation where I'm like, I believe you? Yeah. No, I'm buying into this.
It's gonna be Todd.
I'm buying into this, And like, I'm gonna play that game day one. It's one of my most hyped games of the year. Like, don't get me wrong.
Maybe they'll both come out like crying.
But I'm shooked. Like, I'm mark me down as shooked. Like,
they both should just come out weeping, like
holding really each other.
Yeah, we just can't get it to work on the Series S, guys. I'm sorry. Like, I
feel like
I know I said it would work.
The presentation that they're gonna have, it's just going to be a whole bunch of us watching it going, okay, that's cool, but like, we're going to be literally
we don't believe you.
All right, I just don't.
We don't believe you.
We don't believe you. We don't believe this is going to run. Like they could show completely like an 18-minute gameplay thing on Machine Games' Indiana Jones game and be like, it's coming out in September, surprise. And we could still be like, okay, it's going to be ass when it comes out though, so who cares?
Yep.
Like. And Machine Games is great. They make all the Wolfensteins. So
but they're due for a loss like Arcane is. So.
Exactly. That's the problem.
Everything's the clock, dude. Everything's gonna happen.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get an announcement for a Wolfenstein 3 sometime in the near future.
Yeah, they already said they were working on it. Yeah.
But I mean like an official announcement. Like here's the title. Like here's anyway.
That's the thing. I think what they're gonna do with that is what they did with Wolfenstein 2, which is like back when E3 was a thing. They said, "Hey, Wolfenstein 2, here it is, and also it's coming out in 3 months." I think they're just gonna do that again.
That's kind of what I'm hinting.
They're that kind of.
I hope Xbox starts doing.
And they need a win like that.
That's what I'm suggesting. Just they're going to announce it and release it soon.
Hopefully, Microsoft didn't interfere with the way the developer management functions to totally screw them over and releasing quality games.
What Phil should have done that goddamn day he came out being like, hey, with this baller energy of like, we bought this studio and this he should have just he should have shut the fuck up, all right?
Yeah,
and just not said anything.
God, we're just hitting these.
It's not say anything, all right? Literally just take Bethesda's like whole thing of with Fallout 4. Just everybody needs to just shut up and stop saying things ahead of time.
And I don't usually take the stance that Dan takes of like a hold back like announcement. This would have been a good opportunity for Microsoft not to reveal who they
to have some in the chamber, and then, to have some stuff in the chamber,
and then to like be like, hey, check out this trailer. By the way, we purchased the studio a few years ago. They've been under our watch while making this project, and it's going to be out in a couple months.
Yeah,
that might be what they need.
Like having some.
I feel like everybody knows the laundry list of devs that like Microsoft bought, and now we're all going, well, where's this and where's that and where's this and where's that, and like that's against their
like I respect the like hype energy because I do get hyped, Kyle, but it's we've been playing video games for so long of our lives, and especially with like as time has gone forward and technology gets more advanced and these games are becoming harder to make and it takes longer to make, like I'm just used to having to wait. But I just to me the logic of it, and obviously it's a lot of elements, right? Because then it's publishers like breathing down their neck and all and the fans getting angry and tweeting at them.
That's watching their stock too.
You want to talk about the logic of it, you have to think about where we're at as a society now. People want to be gratified immediately right now. And like, so, in that regard, you do have to kind of pay attention to that type of stuff.
So think about like when Marvel does their phase overview, here comes a phase and they put up a calendar timeline and they'll be like, here's these movies, right? Like
they are 100% not sticking to that, what they revealed last year. They are 100%.
I know, but think about the hype that's involved.
It's so funny that they did that.
And like, I know this phase has been a little different, but if you just think back to like their first few phases of this very unique Marvel Cinematic Universe experiment that they've been doing, they really delivered on a lot of that. And I also think of like the one-cheaters that someone puts out for Nintendo when they announce a bunch of games. They'll be like, here's the major game for Nintendo is like one every month, and it'll be like all their logos like stacked.
And they never have delays.
And it's just like boom, there it is. Except for Zelda, but yeah, like once they have a release date, like once they say it's this date, they don't usually bump that back. They'll bump back release windows.
That's why this year we're playing Metroid Prime 4. Everybody,
but they didn't give a date.
I know. I'm being facetious. I get it, but yeah.
So
it was a game that was announced like 6 years ago, and it's still like.
But there's a reason that there's hype for that stuff. It's an individual TV series or movie or video game. And Microsoft's big thing, like their timeline or whatever, one sheeter was company names. That's what it was. Like their big thing that we can stack with Microsoft is all the companies they've acquired, and it's just like that's kind of exciting, especially at first because you start thinking like all the games that are attached to.
But I thought games were coming.
But like if you were to just swap that out for the games they've released, that's going to be a really embarrassing calendar for them. I could keep envisioning other companies, whether they're whatever kind of entertainment and their release.
I think really just the bottom line is, and I don't know, maybe having smaller projects can kind of like fill some gaps or something. But like, I just think with big games, again, because of how hard they clearly are to make, how intricate they are nowadays, just keep your mouth shut and wait until you're much more confident until these games can come out, because it's just gonna do more harm than good. It just does more harm than good. I think like people are still gonna buy, but
to build off that point and to circle it back to the original question. I feel that I just lost my entire point. That's great. That's awesome.
It's all right.
Just throw another
Hellblade. So like Hellblade was announced how long ago? Hellblade 2 or whatever. We're all really hyped for that. But then you start hearing the stories in the background. Well, we're actually giving them more money, so they reset the project and do it. How much of that is a story now? With all of our shaken like belief and trust, like in Microsoft, like how much of that are we to believe, and how much of that is marketing or a spin on what actually happened? And that's a good example to bring it back to kind of what Dan was saying of like you talked about that game way too early, to the point in Metroid Prime, before mentioned Metroid Prime 2, which I know is not a Microsoft thing, but it's still an industry issue, where it's just like that game has been canceled at least once. It may have been twice, behind the scenes for all we know. I don't know, not canceled, but restructured in some way.
Yeah.
I think they said they're restarting the development. I was like, yikes.
Yeah. Same thing happened to Final Fantasy Remake. Like it's just like this has happened a lot of times, and Microsoft is still gets examples of this outside of themselves, sees it and goes, "Oh, that looks like a mess," and then does that.
Yes,
like it's kind of it is kind of crazy. It is kind of.
And I don't hear PlayStation really going through that, where it's like, there's we announced this, and this is trash, so now we have to move it to another studio, or it's been delayed because of this. Like they hit their markers a lot too. I'm not saying they don't have delay games, but they don't announce stuff and then it takes 10 years. And usually if you announce something, you'll know with the announcement, like it's going to be a while. Like when they made the announcement of Final Fantasy remake or whatever, we all knew it wasn't coming tomorrow. The problem with Xbox is they set a lot of expectations. Like if you notice how they do their shows, a lot of times they'll be like, all these are coming in this next year. Yeah. And it was a ton of games, but we only got like 3. And one of them we didn't even know about. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, you're not releasing stuff, but you own 80 gazillion studios. It's not like you own 5, and you're over there like whipping them in their sweatshops. Like, come on, get it out. Like, you've got like a bunch of teams. Get something out. I'm not being entitled here. Just release something and release it in good order.
Like they hear you say that, and then they're like, hear me out. How about we just fire thousands of people? Is that good? Is that
That'll help all this.
Yeah. All right. Well, I gotta rein this in. So let me ask 2 follow-up questions real quick. We gotta move on to other stuff. Phil's digital landscape comments. In that interview, he talked about how last generation was the worst generation to lose, because that's when gamers are filling up their digital libraries. And so any future consoles, they want to stay with their digital library. So the fact that Xbox One got smoked so poorly, my words, not his, by PS4, meant that they were already facing, the way he described it, sounded like a pretty impossible task to make a dent in the console market share. So they are much more interested in being service and the subscription with Game Pass. That's why they doubled down on that. And they've done some good things. I think we can all agree with Game Pass.
I think we've all really glowed about Game Pass multiple times in this podcast.
It still sounded so defeatist from the leader of a company saying, well, we can't win in this area at all. So then I'm going, why would I ever spend $500 on your shiny console then? Like, if you're already saying like, we're not gonna win.
There's also a layer of untruth to it too, because like the digital generation really started during the Xbox 360 era, which they dominated.
They did.
Most of my digital games are actually from that era, so it's like I actually don't believe what he's saying here at all.
Interesting. That's a good point.
I actually don't believe that. I think that's an excuse to me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So here's my thing. I didn't overall end up agreeing with him, but I didn't completely disagree with him. I hear what Kyle's saying. I went digital during the 360 era, towards the end of it. in the beginning, I was 100% physical, and then they started making all these great deals like on games, and I started buying them. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go digital. So when the PS4 and Xbox One came out, I was fully digital at that time, and I know a lot of people started moving over at that time for those. So I get his point about like not losing the Xbox One, which I will say, I think that was his like passive way of going, that's not my fault. Like I wasn't in charge when the
somebody
Xbox
else was
One
running it
released.
back then. Yeah.
Somebody else made a mistake, and
Sure.
and now I have to pay for it. So I don't think he was taking responsibility there.
I inherited a sinking ship, guys. Okay,
yeah, it's like every president ever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's still
this.
tactical. It's still like tactics we've seen in other.
I could be reading into it, but that's how I took it. I was like, he's blaming it on Don Matrix or whatever his name.
There, Matrix.
Oh my God,
Maddox or whatever. But anyway, so my issue with what he said is that what I don't agree with is I totally understand if somebody owns a gazillion games, a digital library on one platform, it is going to be hard to move them over. But here's where I think he was ridiculous. Now, I think the context of it, and I could be wrong, was that he was saying Starfield isn't going to bring everybody over. Yes, one game is not going to bring everybody over, but do not act like Starfield didn't get you sales in the first place, because I know a couple of people on this podcast that were not Xbox gamers who bought an Xbox because of Bethesda, because of Starfield, because of those games. So no, one game isn't going to do it, and maybe you won't get somebody to sell their PS5 to buy an Xbox, but that's stupid. You're not trying to get somebody to sell their PS5 to buy your Xbox. You're trying to get that person that owns the PS5 to buy your Xbox too.
Also, yeah.
Duh. And how do you do that? You do that with Game Pass. That's a good service, but you also do it by releasing consistently good games that only come out on your platform. And if you want to throw it on PC too, that's fine. That's not going to hurt you as much. But as long as it doesn't come out on PS5 and I would say Nintendo too, they're still a competitor. If you've got that and you've got it consistently coming out, you're not going to tell me that you're not going to drive sales and eventually close the gap. You may not be able to surpass, but the way he should have said it is we can close the gap by working on releasing consistently top-of-the-line games, and that's what I promise I'm going to do.
Look what they did with PS3, right? I mean, that was released like, what, a year later? And the whole cell processor and all that crap, and
the problem.
And
there was
the gap.
A ton of negative. Yeah, there was
all
a ton
crazy
of negative
proprietary cell processors.
Okay, but let's think about that. I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. So, Dan, from your point of view, and then anyone else can chime in on this too, what did Sony do? They were in a bad spot with the launch of the PS3 and with the first year or two, let's say, of that console's life. They were getting dominated already. Xbox 360 had a huge head start, had a better library, even had some great third-party head start and exclusives, better versions, right? So what did they do between
not a
then?
Podcast. That's what they didn't do.
What did they do between then and now to make so much?
They got a second job.
From what I remember, they got a second job. From what I remember, it was them. Because then they started releasing the slimmer one, right? And then the cost of that was lower, so I think that helped.
Price drop combined
and
with
just
games.
And ramping up like exclusives over time, like just some great exclusives. For me, that's what it is. I liked PlayStation because of the exclusives that they had. I looked over at Xbox. I was like, all right, well, Gears is interesting. Halo just seems a little like everyone's like riding the D there, but that's fine. But like it was pretty much like I was interested in. I was always annoyed by the whole Halo obsession. But I don't actually care. If you like Halo, it's fine.
It's so annoying how good it is.
It's fun.
All these people who enjoy this objectively good video game.
Hold on there. Hold on.
It sounds like someone threw the looking
you're
glass
saying
who wasn't having an experience.
You're saying the hardware approach helped. They pulled back on that and they tried to make it more accessible.
But overall, he's saying the library.
The games
in the library.
No, and I agree with Dan.
Because it was like, what was the 10? It was Gears, Halo, Forza, and Fable. I guess maybe could be.
Yeah, at that time,
a little bit. Yeah.
So like it was like the 4 tentpoles, but that was it. Whereas like
that was it.
With PlayStation, I mean, there was like a dozen?
During the 360 era.
During 360, they had a lot more.
During the 360 era, they had a ton of exclusive games
for a while, right? just to them?
Yeah, they had a bunch of like Jade Empire. They had a bunch of games that came out just. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Xbox. That's what I meant. Mass Effect. But like they had a ton of games that were exclusive too, so they had a huge library. It really was when the Xbox One came out that it really just became Gears, Forza, Fable dropped off. You didn't get an Xbox One Fable, so their actual big guns dropped off. Plus, they weren't getting those one-off deals, and the one-off deals they were getting, they weren't successful. So, which was encouraging them not to do it even more. Whereas PlayStation just sticks with it. That's why I emphasize the word consistent. PlayStation is consistent. So even if they fail, and they have failures.
Oh yeah, what was it?
They don't go Starhawk. What's the
MAG
one?
The Dragon one, Dragon
massive
Slayer.
action
Dragon
game.
one?
Do you remember MAG? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember playing. I thought it was actually awesome, but it was laggy. Like I thought it was actually kind of.
It was a good idea that.
But here's the thing: MAG's a good example. Starhawk's a good example. I think Days Gone's a good example. If Sony has a exclusive game that is not like blowing the doors off and getting awards, they're not likely to let that continue. They're going to reallocate resources immediately to their other stuff. Whereas Xbox, with Xbox One, to me, I was not behind the scenes. I don't know this, but as an outsider looking in, it felt like, hey, you stopped allocating resources, creativity, effort to software, and you went all towards subscription services and hardware. And where are the games? Like, well, third party. It felt like they were saying third party will make the games. We'll give you the best place to play. And that's what it felt like they were saying.
But they're not. That's if you were selling a hardware and a subscription service, and the hardware was running your third party games better, but they're not. They're even losing at that. I do think Xbox...
no, they were winning it in the 360. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're Microsoft, you're thinking we make hardware that's better for third party. We can rely on that into the next generation.
Well, they had to deal with the red ring of death,
and still won that generation. That's what's funny to me. Yeah. They picked the wrong disc media and still won.
Yeah, HD DVD. Yeah,
it's so wild to me. Yeah.
Idiots. How could they
have watched more porn and they would have known which?
Yeah, everyone knows that porn adapted Blu-ray first, so that's obviously the one that was going to win. You know.
All right,
it's actually true, right? It's actually true.
It is true.
Yeah, I didn't know
that's a fact. That's a totally fact. It's a total fact.
30 seconds or less. What does Microsoft have to do, Xbox specifically, to re-earn your trust as a gamer? We'll start with Jeff. What do they have to do? What has to happen over the next year or two?
Do what Dan said and shut the hell up and keep your heads down and do the work. And that, because that's what Sony did. You mentioned all the failures, objective failures that they had, which are not that many, but they kept their heads down and did the work and aimed to improve their hardware and improve their exclusivities and like stuff like that. Yeah. So just seriously, just do the work. Like, stop saying, look at all these companies we bought and show me a game when it's ready and good. You know.
Love it. Kyle, what do you think?
Secure wins. Just secure them. Secure and make sure that there's wins. You got to have some wins, guys. Like, it's got to happen.
Some significant ones,
Significant wins.
Big ones. Yeah. Dan.
What Jeff said that I said.
I love it.
Because really,
Wayne
really...
Gretzky, Michael Scott. I get it.
Yeah, it just really, again, for me, ultimately, it like I still bring up all the time the Fallout 4 thing. I literally bring it up all the time. Like, that was, even though it's not between that and the third Fallout game, I like the third one more. But that moment was so hype. It was just like, holy shit, this is coming out in less than 6 months.
This holiday?
Are you kidding me? That's insane. Like,
I'm not even a Fallout guy, and I was pumped for that because it was so exciting to have a major game announced and released that quick.
Yeah, exactly. It was crazy.
Derek, what about you? What do they have to do to re-earn trust? Not even just for you, but for everyone, you think?
I think deliver consistently good games. When you fail...
Starting when? Give me an example. Like, when do they have...
it's got to start with Starfield. You have to start with Starfield. It has to start with Starfield. You can't have 30 frames per second, bugs everywhere.
That game is so going to be 30 frames per second, I promise you. I promise.
Oh yeah,
on consoles, not on PC. Yeah, I think it'll be a Redfall situation.
But I think one thing I will add on, and maybe with all the studios they did purchase, this will get addressed. Get away from games with services and co-op only bro shooter crap. Start emphasizing some single player RPGs, open world, single player, third person action games. I know you're saying some people are listening going, so you just want PlayStation games? But they work.
They
You don't
work,
have to
yeah.
copy and paste exactly what they do, but start
I mean,
borrowing and taking from what they do because it
also
works.
people get so pissy about that, but it's like these are all still individual. Yeah, like it's like it's sort of like a structure of a concept, right? But like you're still making your own original story, your own characters, whatever
Yes,
the moments that they go through. It's just people
I
get so
agree.
pissy that it's like, well, it's the same structure. Well, it's, I mean, yeah, we as a society
it's
have created
looking
all
for
these
an
ideas.
argument, and they're taking a 40,000-foot view of it and going,
Sure.
every single one of these games are the same. Okay,
Yeah,
you're an
So
idiot.
my
Shut up.
specific thing I think they need to do, yes, it needs to start with Starfield, but starting with Starfield, I think they need to have, as I think Kyle put it well, like they need to have a significant win once per quarter for probably the next 2 years for people to kind of get back on board and for them to be a force in this industry again. Like, and I think if they have 2 misses, they're gonna essentially lose for good. Like I don't, and I think 1 miss they might lose for good, but I think 2 misses like this again, I think Xbox is in serious.
They're already starting to lose momentum even before the Redfall debacle. Like sales for PS5s are going crazy.
If you look at the studios, they have 1 major win per quarter on average. Let's just say that sometimes it's 2, and then they go 2 quarters of nothing, and then they deliver another 2. Like that's fine. But if you average 1 win per quarter, so like about 3 to 4 per year for the next 2 years, then they're going to be on target with what Sony does, with what Nintendo does.
We will shut up.
We will
shut up.
Be excited.
And we do matter.
And
I do understand,
dude. They have the IP. They have they have the staffing. They have the resources. It doesn't make sense.
They own the studio that made Sky. Like I can't push that enough. Like it's the most like resold game of all time. Like people want to play a new Skyrim-like game, you know, and like. All you need to do is make it good, and people will show up. That's all you need to do.
That can include their, you know, what is it? Is it a biannual release of Forza Horizon? Great, like include that in the cadence, right? So you've got your Starfield, you can have your Forza. That's fine. Give us the next Gears. I imagine Gear 6 has got to be well into development by now. So like they've got to have these.
Just give me Fable and Killer Instinct. Give me
Outer Worlds 2, like Jeff mentioned. Outer Worlds 2 could be a mega.
Outer Worlds 2 could be very
IP for them too. So anyway,
I don't think they're going to lose regardless. I don't think that's just going to happen. Because the bottom line is just, I do think there's just always going to be people that, and regardless of fanboys, that are just going to be like, I mean, you know, you have something there. You got something. I mean, Game Pass.
Oh yeah, they'll be relevant. They're not going to go out of business. But I think we're talking more like, are you going to be able to ever catch up or surpass PlayStation and Nintendo, and with their attitude right now and the way they're running their business?
Any excitement to any project of theirs.
No, Microsoft is too big of a company for Xbox to go away. It'll always exist in some way.
I think they have a lot of pride and ego where they're like, we're just going to put more money into this problem and keep on trying to fight the fight. You know, just maybe in a different way.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see like if they do truly take a distant back seat. Like their numbers are not looking good. Like they started pretty strong. Like there was actually some pretty impressive back and forth.
You couldn't find them on the shelves. People were buying them. You know?
But yeah, things aren't looking great now. And so if they do end up taking a significant back seat, they can't get their legs under them and really kind of recapture the moment in the next year or two. I'm curious to see what will Sony do now that Nintendo would be back in their crosshairs as the major competitor. Would they dive back into a handheld world, trying to like, capture some of that market share now that they've dominated the home console? I'd be curious to see if Sony would be like, all right, Xbox is defeated.
Nope,
they're not gone.
3.
I want them to beef. I want them to send Crash Bandicoot like in a mascot outfit, screaming in a megaphone.
You guys are wrong about VR. We're just gonna sell you another one. You're wrong about it. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We make great VRs. We make the best. They're
make the best VR.
I'm telling you, it would be a win if they just put that thing out for $200. But
I would buy it.
I would
buy it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay.
I think a lot of people would just like, whatever.
Yeah, they would have. All right, let's keep rolling here. I know that was a long chat about that. That's what's in the news though right now. That's the game that's out. That's the news and talk around it. So I wanted us to have a chance to unload on it. But hey, there's another awesome game that dropped on Game Pass this week that I remember seeing revealed a while back. Maybe it was late last year. It was just one of those like random YouTube trailers. It was like some kind of like announcement trailer or something. It wasn't really big, but it's from the team that made Echo Generation. And it's a game called Ravenlok. And I remember looking at it and thinking, oh, cool. Echo Generation gameplay was pretty fun, but the art style was really cool. And I'm curious to see what they do next. And so Ravenlok is out, and I only played a little bit of it. I think maybe an hour or so of this game, but it's pretty cool, man. And it looks awesome. The art style is just stellar on this game. Any of you guys play? I know, Jeff, you played it some. A few of you played it.
What's the combat? Because I haven't played it
yet.
Yeah,
Jeff, how do you describe the combat in this game?
Melee, but it's like super fast.
So it's not turn-based like Echo Generation was.
No, it's an action. It's an action game.
Yeah, but like it's so funny because you're just like, like it's so freaking comical.
So think about most action games. If you like hit your light attack 3 times, it'll be like a little combo, and they'll kind of end and pause. And you do it again. This game, it just literally just the same swings over and over again. You just keep going.
That sounds kind of old school, actually, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like the games back in the day and like kind of pixelated, the Nintendo type games.
You
would
have
be very
a
simple.
shield too, and you have power-ups that you can use.
There's a dodge and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you acquire more abilities as you progress the as you finish more goals and stuff like that in the story. The story is kind of shallow though. There's not, conceptually it's just Alice in Wonderland. So there's really not
very well.
No.
68 on Metacritic.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I thought it was really good looking, but I didn't
play
it long enough to have fun with it. I didn't think it was like fun. I was just doing like little dumb missions, and then I got to the part where it's like you need a sword and shield, and I didn't know where to go from there. I just explored everywhere and kept taking on missions, but I wasn't actually completing.
The shield's in a really obscure spot, but yeah.
It has
the sword is like somewhere else too, in like a stone or something like that.
What did you say, Dan?
It has a very Alice in Wonderland look to me.
Oh,
well, I mean, yeah, that's the story. That's
absolutely.
Oh, okay.
The concept of it.
It is Alice in Wonderland essentially. Yeah.
Okay.
Just like their Echo Generations was Stranger Things, right? I mean, without being Stranger Things.
I really loved the concept of that too. There was like a mystery to it that was actually.
I'm thinking of a different. That's the right game, right? Where it was set in the 80s. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this one though, it's not. I don't know that. I mean, again, Jedi Survivor is life right now, but so I'm probably not gonna. Even though this game's like 3 hours, I'm probably not gonna beat it or anything. But for like a really, really tiny indie game, it's actually quite enjoyable, and I do like the visual stuff. Like, it depends on the environment you go into. Like, I cleared out the forest area, which is like the first real area that you really unlock.
That's kind of where I got before I
rabbit hole, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Oh, this is only 3 hours long.
Yeah, I believe so. That's of the game. I've looked up gameplay walkthroughs, and all of them clocked in at like 3.5 hours. It's not really asking a whole lot. I think it's meant for kids to be able to play. I think that's what I gathered from it.
Yeah, even completionist on how long to beat says 4 hours.
I should stream this.
That is, but...
You might enjoy it as a streaming game but like the art style is just so cool in some environments, like the neon colors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Enemy design looks okay. They're like kind of Lego-y sometimes. Depending on. But I think that feeds into what they were doing at Echo Generation
it's easy, because you can swing your sword so fast. Almost every attack that lands kind of stuns the enemy, so you can just kind of like groups of enemies are just like sitting there stunned while you're hitting them, and you can just attack. So it's easy. You
barely have to use your shield. Like, I mean, really only ever with bosses do I quote unquote struggle, and I use that term loosely because I still have enough heals.
You know how in Alice in Wonderland is a Cheshire cat, and so there's a giant cat in this one too, and his name is Nestor. So I'm all in for this one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
A little bias there.
But a cool little surprise game. I like having those kind of games. I'm gonna leave it installed. This is one I feel like, after I finish Jedi Survivor and in between, probably long play sessions with Zelda, I could see myself like, I'm going to play a little more of this one because it's only 3-4 hours long. I like it. Like, it's fun. It's a fun little game.
Yeah, I think it's fun too. It's not like, again, it's not going to be like on my end of the year list or anybody else's really, I don't think. But it's quality. It's quality indie.
I don't think any of us are playing this, but it's worth mentioning. Age of Wonders 4, which is a pretty popular strategy game on PC, is out. It's getting kind of like 8 out of 10 on average from most reviewers, and I don't think it was super positive on Steam, but I think that was more about some of the like login and initial crashing stuff. Every game crashes, it seems like, now when it launches.
Of course.
So that's just what it does. Last one that I wanted to mention, and Jeff brought up, was Tape to Tape, which is a game that I actually have on my wish list. Do plan on buying it at some point. It's this little like hockey management RPG, but also roguelite, I think.
Yeah,
game.
That sounds awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, game. I didn't know Tim likes those. I didn't know you like those.
That
Tim.
sounds super interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it focuses on. I didn't even get to touch it yet because obviously with the things I'm watching and the games I'm playing, got distracted. But the Steam reviews should be encouraging because it's at very positive right now. Granted, it's only 500 users, but it is in early access. It's not that expensive. Like I got it for like $18 or something. Yeah. And it's a roguelite where like your choices do matter in terms of like the teams that you end up playing and their difficulty level. And there's kind of like, I don't know why Armored Core is. I guess that's the comparison I can make, where you have to build the right team to fight, in order to beat your enemy, beat your team, beat the opponents that you're facing. Like you can't just bring in any group of people. Like you have to assess what the opposing team looks like skills wise, and be like, okay, so I should bring so and so to this.
I like that kind of stuff, man.
I think that's really cool.
I'm pretty sold. And the art style is interesting. It's like a cell shaded, cartoony look.
Yeah, exactly. And you can bribe referees apparently, which is hilarious. And you can upgrade your hockey stick at like the guy who's like the welder or whatever, like the blacksmith.
Oh my god!
So they're kind of like in a comical way, borrowing from actual like legit
like Hockey
RPGs.
Quest. This is Hockey Quest. There's like Redfall Quest, and now here's Hockey Quest.
Hockey Quest.
So I think it's got it,
tape
it's got its heart in the right place, and it's silly. It's got a silly art style.
Yeah,
I just haven't been able to play it beyond the demo that I tried.
All right, guys, let's do a little May preview here. I know we're into May. I should have done this last week, but we were a little busy, and so let's go kind of quickly. I don't want to spend too much time doing this. I know we spent a lot of time talking Redfall, Microsoft, and bigger industry stuff, but just interrupt me if there's a game I mention or one that I miss or one that you're like, no, this is my May game. I'm so excited for this. I just wanted to say how excited I am for it. So of course we already have released Age of Wonders 4, Redfall, Ravenlok have already come out this past week. But by the time this podcast releases, you should have access to Darkest Dungeon 2, if that's one you've been waiting for. That comes out the 8th.
Oh yeah.
Kyle,
that's a weird release date on a Sunday.
I'm excited about that one. Yeah.
I think the 8th is a Monday, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Monday.
Yeah. Sorry.
It'll be on. I think isn't that Game Pass? I thought that was a Game Pass game.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah. But yeah, really unique kind of RPG management type of a game, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah. With a like a real deep dive into like status ailments that are like like mental illnesses and stuff like that.
Yeah, that game is like, literally quite dark.
Yeah, one guy might be a coward, one might like hallucinate stuff, one might, and like it's a total random.
Like if a character dies and everyone's just like, oh man, they're all like
depressed
and like,
if your other characters watch one of your characters die, their mental health takes a dip and they just start like getting depressed. And
so cool. Just like the first game, this is coming to PC only on May 8th, and I think it's going to be on Game Pass actually, and then later consoles. Like the console version came out 2 years after PC
for Darkest Dungeon.
One.
Okay. And then on Tuesday, May 9th is Void Train. This is one I've had my eye on for a little while. It looks really unique but silly, where it literally is a train that's going through these portals and kind of flying through space and time that you upgrade. And it looks like you're doing some first-person shooter battling, but also kind of like upgrading and building your train. I don't know. It looks
management. I've seen a lot of early access footage of this.
Yeah, and I think there's been some mixed early preview thoughts on it, but they've been working on it for a long time. I'm very interested to see the final product when it releases this coming week. And then one that I just played the demo for called Death or Treat is coming out this coming week on Thursday, May 11th. If you like Rogue Legacy, it's very much in that vein, where you go do a run and then you come back and you upgrade your little town because you can now buy new weapons or new skills or upgrade your health, that kind of thing. But it's all Halloween themed. So it's like it's a really adorable cartoon style, like Casper the Friendly Ghost style artwork. And it's very silly. Like the characters, like there's a pumpkin headed guy whose name is just Jobs, but he's clearly supposed to be like Steve Jobs as he's like standing there, the way he's dressed. And then there's a little guy named Gates. Like they have like these tech people that you would like recognize who they're emulating. It's just kind of silly. It's a Halloween themed silly thing, but the fighting is actually pretty fun, and you can unlock crazy weapons. So I think it's worth trying the demo if you like side-scrolling games like Rogue Legacy. And then Fuga, Melodies of Steel 2. I think the first game was pretty well liked.
It's an RTS, right?
I don't know. I've never actually played it. I think the first one's.
I'm pretty sure it's an RTS. Yeah.
I think this one's coming to Game Pass too. Speaking.
I'm gonna go ahead and count that as
It is.
Tim's F-bomb.
Fuga.
Fuga.
Yeah, that should count. That should count.
So
Of course, we have Zelda coming out next Friday on the 12th. I have not heard of any delays, so that's good. We have Tears of the Kingdom arriving on Friday.
I would hope not at this point. I
It's
pre-installed
so
it.
funny. If
But
that's
listen,
Tuesday's
it's a delay.
news, yeah.
Zelda better capture my attention because next week we have Humanity on the 16th, and I cannot wait
The dog puzzle game,
for
yeah.
the dog puzzle game, Humanity.
I have no hope for humanity.
There is a game the next
Literally.
Friday that I kind of had forgotten about till I looked at this list, and I am a little excited about trying. That's Lego 2K Drive. I'm at least excited to hear about the responses and reviews on it. Like, what do people think? You know?
Yeah,
I'm
open
gonna
world,
wait and see
kart
what they
racer.
say.
Yeah, but yeah, open world, little Forza style, little kart racer style, but with Legos where you can build your own vehicle. Like, all right, I want to see
Sounds
what this
cool.
is all about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a game called After Us that I thought looked very, indie kind of 3D exploration, cool lighting. But it doesn't look like a very strong action game. It looks more like adventure exploring, from what I could tell.
It looks like a passive 2-3 hour experience, maybe.
That's kind of what it looks like to me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd probably like it. I'm just gonna guess.
The setting of it is cool, like this post-apocalyptic setting. Does look pretty. I watched a little video for it today. Amnesia: The Bunker. It's not a series I've gotten into personally, but there you go. Amnesia: The Bunker. If that's your thing, that comes out on the 23rd, along with Convergence, League of Legends story. Not LOL, but I've shortened it for my list here. But Convergence is that one that stars Echo from the Arcane series and
Sweet.
League of Legends.
This is the one I've been excited for the most, honestly, of the League of Legends spin-off games. Yeah.
It's a side-scrolling kind of action platforming looking thing. Looks really fun.
Yeah.
Like two in the span of 2 months. It's pretty good for them.
That's not bad.
Put out those games. Yeah.
I think they were pretty directly impacted by all the COVID stuff because they had announced a lot of these games and they kept being just quietly pushed back and they weren't saying a lot about them. So I think now we're starting to
Microsoft
see.
should buy their studios.
Oh my gosh,
I
Riot!
was
They buy
literally
Riot
thinking
for it.
that.
It's just like, oh no. Warhammer 40K Bolt Gun, which actually looks pretty awesome.
Looks
comes
so
out
cool. Yeah,
on
I'm
the
super into
23rd.
this. Doom clone.
Yeah, it looks really.
Oh, that's right. That's the Doom slash.
Yeah, it's got a
Quake
retro.
clone.
It's got a retro look.
Yeah.
To it,
yeah.
I would
think
play that.
the style of this looks so cool. So the video looks cool. I'm curious to see how it actually
Very,
plays.
very cool.
Daydream Forgotten Sorrow comes out on the 24th. It's kind of like it doesn't look as terrifying as Bramble the Mountain King, but it has similar vibes in terms of like a little kid who's in a fantasy world for some reason. So anyway, Daydream Forgotten Sorrow. Bat Boy looks like super old. It looks like
Mega
That's the
Man.
one I shared.
it's
right?
a Nintendo 8-bit looking game. It looks like Mega Man and Ninja Gaiden had a baby,
Yep.
and
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
kind of the vibe that I got from
It
it.
looks very frustratingly difficult.
Yes, it
Just like
does.
those games. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll finish it and let you guys know how it is.
Okay. Sure.
Right.
Or like
That's
Black
a-
Boy.
That's on May 25th, alongside Cassette Beasts and Lord of the Rings Gollum are all coming out on May 25th.
I am so curious for how reviews are going to shake out for Gollum.
too,
because
man.
I do not.
I don't know
think
if
it looks good so
I've
far.
seen a single person say anything positive about that game in games media
Yeah.
at all.
Even
Like,
Games Media, when they release a preview,
I
they're
don't
like,
know
"Here's
why
this
game's
game."
still coming out.
They're not
Yep.
like,
Yep.
"Hey, this was fun." They're just like, "This is a game." Like,
Yep.
nothing is like.
Oh, I
screaming
forgot
good.
on the 23rd is also the Planet of Lana, which Jeff has talked about. Really cool
Yeah.
art style for
I
that.
played the demo for that. That's a platformer, but like you have a companion and stuff, and you got to.
Oh, is that what that little like kind of? Is it a goopy thing or more?
Yeah, it's
fluffy?
kind
I
of like a
forget.
black ink.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
Weird.
I
like a
played the
boy and
demo.
his blob, except it's
Yeah.
the girl
Yeah.
or blob.
Exactly.
So the 23rd, 24th, 25th are actually pretty busy release days for small to mid-sized games. So it'll be interesting week there. And then on the 30th, right now at least, System Shock's remake is still slotted for that day. Although I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. But anyway,
Yeah, that could have been a placeholder, but
could have been
at
a
least the
placeholder
demo
date.
was great. So
And I really doubt that WrestleQuest will hit this May release date. On Steam, it says to be determined or not, not announced or whatever. So
yeah,
I don't think
I
that's
think
going to hit in May.
a couple weeks ago I checked the Switch store and it was still listed for May. But
Okay.
if we haven't heard anything yet, then
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it'll be a stealth drop. Who
Could
knows?
be. That's true.
So yeah, this month is it's got of course a couple of heavy hitters, like some big names. Redfall was a big name, of course. Zelda's a big name, but there's not really a ton of other ones that are like huge tentpole releases that every gamer's into. There's a lot of the niche stuff outside of those two, I think. But there's some cool looking games on the way for the rest of the month. All right, Microsoft having their Xbox Game Showcase on June 11th. So there's no E3, of course, but we are getting a few different events that week. We'll have to come together and figure out like what is there enough back-to-back programs for us to do like a response to it, or do we just kind of like gather the headlines and talk about it the following episode? We'll have to see if there's enough to live respond.
They're doing the Starfield separate. Like it's going to be right after like the Starfield showcase or whatever.
I think it would be fun if we could in our schedules do like a live reaction. That'd be cool.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. And see if Phil's still sad for that. Be interesting to see.
Guys, Starfield's coming.
We've got some
other
games if you guys care about it. I
hope you like it.
But we don't want you guys to trust us, like.
I just want them to slowly over time just start breaking down, like just physically and mentally,
like Ben shopping for the Batman suit.
His beard starts growing out and getting grizzly.
So
he's not shaved.
Or what's the I can't remember the character's name in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the one that looks like Charles. The one that's always this twin when they do the have you guys any of you watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yeah,
I watched like the first.
Yeah, the one that looks like Charles. They always do the Halloween special, and there's the guy that's like the lookalike. And over time, he just he becomes homeless. He's all just super gross, and he'll like do anything.
I strangely don't remember that guy.
I was thinking I was thinking of Cricket from Rest.
That's you're
okay. Well, sure, that works.
It's always sunny. Oh yeah.
It's actually
every time you see him, he's missing a new piece of his body.
He's got a giant burn scar on his face.
That's actually.
I really do hope he just comes out and just is like, "Hey guys, so like, here's this or whatever," and then it just walks off stage like.
I mean,
really slow, just like
buy it if you want. But
I guess.
I played Starfield, but
we know you're on PlayStation 5 anyway.
I think there's a part in Wedding Crashers where Owen Wilson's depressed because Vince Vaughn's getting married, and he's literally making speeches at weddings. Going, does anybody even wonder what this is all for? Like,
he goes in the back, and the mic is still on. He's just crying, heavily.
Yeah.
It's like
we're in the era of existential Phil now, so that's good.
It'll be interesting to see.
You better have a depression era beard.
That is Sunday, June 11th. That'll be at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Sad news for Switch fans who are holding out for what I thought would have been a game that could have run on Switch was Marvel's Midnight Suns has been canceled officially, and the Xbox One and PS4 versions are actually arriving this coming week. If you had,
very surprising about the Switch cancellation.
I think it's because of sales. It didn't sell very well.
That's where it would sell, don't you think? Maybe it wouldn't. I feel like it would sell.
Not if they can't get it running well.
They can't get it running on I'm sorry, like PC would have been the thing. Like that's where all of Firaxis fans are, So
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a shame.
But also,
the last
I'm growing in respect for people who delay and cancel their games now. It's like, you know what? It's probably better that you didn't put out a piece of garbage.
Thank goodness they didn't harm themselves even further, I guess, after low sales. But like, I think the same day that they're doing the Xbox One and PS4 launch, they are dropping the last DLC.
Yeah, it's called
I forget the name of it. Yeah, Bloodstorm. That's right.
Yeah, Bloodstorm.
I wonder who's in it. Storm.
I think it's Storm.
Storm and Blade. I don't know.
I mean, it's right in line with the name like Redfall. Like they're all together with these titles. All right.
Fall on it. It wins.
But even though Midnight Suns is not coming to Switch, Biomutant is. So there's your swimming in sevens for the Switch. Biomutant.
I mean, that's our announcement for Gaston. He's the only one that's gonna play.
I hope he plays there and has a great time.
I hope he
also,
does.
That game came out 25 years ago. Why are we getting this game
since that game launched? It's crazy.
And that
Gaston, I hope you buy it and it's broken. They all want you to enjoy it. I don't want you to enjoy it.
That dude loves his 4K games on Switch, and I'm here for it. I champion it all day long that he plays all those big games on that thing.
I think that was a 2021 game, if I remember correctly. And the fact that the port for Switch has been announced now in May, but it's not coming out for 6 more months. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
It's coming out in November. All right.
That's just good.
Like,
that's just
hey,
good
but we're going to get Call of Duty on this bad boy.
If we budget
right?
the next 6 months, we could at least get 5 sales out of this. I think it's worth it. It's a good idea, guys.
Well, Nintendo's hosting a live stream starting on May 11th at 6:45 p.m. Pacific time, and the idea is they're going to lead up with content, gameplay stuff, some live, some pre-recorded, leading up to the game's release at midnight. So that's pretty cool. If you're hyped for that and counting down the minutes for the next Zelda game. Sony news: Spider-Man Remastered is finally getting a standalone PS5 release. I didn't know this, that you couldn't actually get the PS5 version of Spider-Man Remastered by itself.
You have to own the original and then go in and
you had to have the Miles Morales Ultimate Edition of Spider-Man to get the PS5 version. I didn't know that.
Well, I remember owning the original and then going into the game, and then it's like, oh, you want to buy this?
Would you like to upgrade? That's how I did it too.
Yeah.
So later this month, you can. Well, I guess that's the only way you can purchase it. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Now you're saying it's a standalone. You just can just buy it on its own.
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be $50 though. But yeah, I assume that if you don't,
if you don't, $30 to upgrade when you
so annoying. God.
But if you don't own Spider-Man at all, that's the way to get it, right? If you have a PS5, you don't own Spider-Man yet for some reason.
That's still overpriced. That's Nintendo. That's Nintendo pricing right there.
But they can because they keep putting out good games. So
I mean, it's also Spidey.
That game is a 10 out of 10. So
that game is amazing. Final Fantasy 16 has been banned from releasing in Saudi Arabia.
Suck it, Saudi Arabia.
So in a post on the official Twitter account for its video game division on Wednesday, the General Commission for Audiovisual Media, so this is in Saudi Arabia, said the game has not been cleared for release in the country. According to the message, the game has been banned because it contains unacceptable content that Square Enix refuses to change. And there's no clarity on what that content is. We don't know. But there's a lot of people who are saying based on other pieces they're pulling in, other pieces of news and things that have been talked about, it does sound like there's some sort of
I think it shows women voting or driving. I think that's the problem.
They're showing their faces. They're showing their faces.
Yeah, they're just showing face. Yeah,
showing faces. No, but it seems to be, the rumors seem to be that there's some sort of LGBTQ content potentially in the game, maybe.
Oh, huh. I wouldn't think of Japan developers.
I would hope that the main character is just like waving a rainbow flag.
And that's like, it. And then they interpreted it as, oh, this is a gay character or whatever. Like, yeah.
But anyway, they decided
maybe there's a whole section where you're fighting against a country that's kind of Saudi Arabia, and they're like, we do not like the representation.
I mean, that opens up a whole.
The game's not out yet, you know.
That opens up a whole thing because they said, everyone thinks it's just white people in the game, even though we haven't played it yet, and I know that technically.
You know what's interesting is if it were something that every country was going like, you can't release this game. This is too offensive, and all these different for whatever reason, like it's a game about killing babies or whatever the thing is, right? Like it's just horrible. You can't do this. Then I'd be like, all right, everyone's on board, I guess, but this is just one country who has decided that it's not okay for their citizens. Every other country, whatever, but like their citizens.
Usually Australia, so it's fun that it's somebody else.
Yeah,
now. So
usually Australia.
Saudi Arabia. But hey, in more positive news,
Australia has some of the strictest restriction laws.
They didn't allow San Andreas to release over there, right?
Yeah, in terms of like editing and censorship, they have some of the strictest censorship laws.
Well, that's not a good eye, is it? It's not a good eye at all.
Good blokes.
There's this game that was announced 3 years ago called Chrono Odyssey that was kind of tabbed as being the next gen fantasy MMORPG for consoles and PC from the South Korean studio called NPixel. And it was originally planned to release fully this year with some testing in 2021, 2022. I don't know if they've done all the testing they want, but they just put out this gameplay trailer, which is mind-blowing.
This game. Okay, I remember.
They're using Unreal Engine 5, and it just looks unbelievable, dude. It looks so good.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
It looks unreal. But yeah, it's going to be on PS5, Xbox Series X, and on PC. No release date, although there doesn't seem to be a change.
Isn't it going to be on mobile too? Because it's like
and
free?
Mobile, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's kind of amazing. Like
it's an MMORPG, so like people hear free and they think free to play. That's different from MMORPG. The idea is like you can play up to a certain level or a certain amount of content usually for free in most of those games, or you can subscribe. Like, so I'm not too concerned about the free thing. I'm just really interested in seeing how this actually looks. I haven't played a whole lot of MMOs where the action side of it was super fun. It's usually like cooldowns and like I like a hot bar, that kind of thing for those kind of games.
Yeah.
The action side of it doesn't usually work great in my opinion, but we'll see.
There's got to be a catch with this one, but at least it looks good. It's showcasing well.
Oh, it looks, and they said it's gameplay. They didn't show any like HUD, so there's no like heads-up display. You couldn't see any menus or anything, but it did look like in-game combat.
Yeah, and that did look smooth, but I don't know how it feels.
Yeah.
Well, how does it feel?
How does it feel? Anyway, Chrono Odyssey looks pretty
30
good.
30 frames per second.
It was definitely more than that. Just at a glance.
Was it?
Hey,
okay, good.
That's
5
caps at 30-29.
I'm pretty sure 14 on PC can hit 60. So.
Listen, my eye picks up on that stuff. Don't worry about it, you guys. I'm just kidding.
I get diarrhea when I see play in 30 frames per second.
Diarrhea.
That's the second time.
I can just see you sitting on your couch
running
and just
diarrhea.
Uncontrollably.
Explosive. Running.
Like the deer from Castle Crashers.
Yeah.
That's what I pictured right away.
Yeah, that's too good.
Anyway, so yeah, Chrono Odyssey looks pretty cool. Rocket League this week getting a bunch of Star Wars content. So it is stuff you have to pay for, but some of the add-ons, the decals, you can get like a little topper that looks like a couple of the different droids, including R2D2 and BB-8. Looks like they're coming out of the top of your car. So like some of that's pretty cute.
Kind of like cute. They would if they were like piloting X-wing or whatever. Gotcha.
Yeah. So some just aesthetic stuff for Star Wars that they're adding to that. EA has announced June 16th release date for their next F1 racing game, which I know none of us here are super into those, I don't think, but those always review well. People love the F1 racing games.
Is it stand for fuck? That's my F-bomb. Yeah. Fuck one?
Yes, that's what it stands for.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
There you go.
That's good.
I like 5. Oh my god.
That's taking the bit home right there.
The big thing that they announced was the return of, I guess they tried one entry of these F1 games had a story mode called Breaking Point, and that's coming back this year for this game.
That's cool. Story mode. All right.
Some people love these freaking games more than anything. Yeah.
They sell well,
They do.
I feel like EA has the most franchises that just every year there's a new entry and it sells bananas. I feel like they've got FIFA, they've got F1.
They get to laugh their way to the bank every year as they get crowned worst company ever, and they're like, "We don't care. You guys buy our dumb games." So
like, oh yeah, but we still have Madden though, right? All right, here you go.
Oh, and they have a corner on every sports and racing.
They do.
Yep.
Talk about monopolies, dude. So is Brad Pitt going to be in this game? Because I heard he's racing F1 or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be in it.
Yeah,
he's the main character in the story mode.
Yeah. That'd be so funny if Brad Pitt was in this game.
I do all the mo capturing.
I don't know if you guys were ever into Double Dragon. I liked it back in the day.
Loved it.
There's a
Double Dragon.
Brand new entry, Double Dragon Gaiden Rise of the Dragons. And that's announced for this summer, coming to all consoles and PC. That's the first new Double Dragon game since 2017's Double Dragon 4. So there you go.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was so bland.
I will say I really liked the music in the trailer because it was such a throwback. I hated everything about how this game was.
Yeah, I didn't like the art style. It's not Double Dragon.
I thought it looked gross. But
it kind of looked like a bad version of the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World game. Like it didn't look quite right.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe it plays really well though. Maybe it does feel good. I don't know. But
that's why they throw in the guy.
My knee-jerk reaction was, "Ooh, why?"
Dragon. That's what that means. Yeah.
Shadow Man Dark Legacy has been announced for 2024. Shadow Man, I remember these games from back in like the PS2 days or something like that. I guess that was the last time they released a new one. So there was one on N64, Dreamcast, and PS1 called Shadow Man, and then there was a follow-up in 2002 on PlayStation 2. It was called Shadow Man Second Coming, and the S on second was a 2.
Yeah, it is.
Wow, they did it, everybody.
Yeah.
Which doesn't...
It's not good.
That's what she said. That's what she's
really not good.
I hate when freaking like movies or games do that. It makes no sense.
Yeah. No,
it's like the movie Seven. It's a 7 and in. Like, come on, man.
It's a 7 and in.
But that's not till next year. Oh, and last but not least, Hogwarts Legacy is still selling a lot of copies, you guys. They just topped 15 million in sales, which has grossed them over $1 billion. So
wow. We are getting an RPG sequel, like a full RPG sequel. That's what I think. I felt like this was a template for an even deeper RPG.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I think we're getting a sequel for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
And they'll grow those systems out. Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely getting a sequel now. Even if
I think they're going to take that Witcher, based on what you guys described as the Witcher arc, where like 3 was like, holy crap, look at all the crap we can do in this RPG. Yeah. Sure, like I feel like 2 will be a step further in that direction.
I agree. Especially if they start allowing you to travel to some of these other schools that have been mentioned in this game.
Boycotts didn't work.
Dude, yeah, I know, right?
But like, if you have a chance to now go, like, you can now travel to these other schools. So now each of those has their own map or something. Like, oof,
that'd be dope. They're cutting it close to Dumbledore is a student time, so they would have to go back even further or do a different school, like you're saying.
I would say do a different school, and you can visit Hogwarts still,
Would you still call it Hogwarts Legacy 2 then?
Yeah, that's the thing. How do you advertise?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you would call it like something Legacy, whatever that school is, right? I mean,
maybe because Hogwarts is just a known.
You'd have to like change. Yeah, the branding is there already. Yeah,
Hogwarts and others.
Yeah,
like Hogwarts and Friends.
I mean, you're right. They could go even further back, like when Hogwarts first started. It's not a castle yet. It's just like whatever.
Oh, you build the castle.
It's a bunch of
you build the castle.
That's not
and then it's like Dragon Age Inquisition.
Oh my god!
Right, Derek. You get the castle in Dragon Age Inquisition.
Well, that was my biggest issue with Redfall. There was no castle.
There's no castle.
Yeah, you have a sick fire department though, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
true.
There
Got two
you go.
stories.
All right, guys. I think most of us are still playing some good Star Wars Jedi Survivor in terms of our main games. At least a couple of us are.
Oh,
That's still my main experience, and I'm still loving it. I'm glad that I've gotten to the big open areas and not. I think I got the patch just in time, Jeff, as you were saying to me in chat. Like I think I planned it out. Didn't plan it at all, but my life kept me from playing it a ton, so where I actually couldn't advance to the parts where most people started seeing problems, and they just released a patch right as I got there. So
yeah, like a day before you were like, "Hey, I got there." I was like, "Oh my god, they patched it." That's so perfect.
If the issues were going to hit me, they missed me because of the. But I have been playing it on quality mode, and it runs fantastic.
It does.
And it looks so good. There's so many times when I'm just like stop and I'm like, dude.
I think the last crash I had was like 4 or 5 days ago, and that was like pre-patch, and I've had I've had some sluggishness on anything involving water because they're detailed. The water is so detailed that the engine just like can't keep up or something. So there's some sluggishness there, but like it runs so good in quality mode.
Yeah.
Like I have no complaints now. I retract all my complaints.
So weirdly, since the patch I played all day today, I had 2 crashes and tons of problems. So
what the heck?
Yeah, the
Oh my
patches
god!
Totally kind of messed up my experience. Not the quality, but like in terms of like I was having no problems pre-patch, like 0 at all. I had a couple like auto syncing issues that I was just like, oh, the lips aren't saying what they're supposed to be saying right now. But like this, now I'm having like actual issues, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. This is
now. Do you have performance mode turned on or off on your PS5?
I'm on quality.
Quality. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Dang,
well, are you at the swamp area?
Yeah, I'm past that. Yeah.
Oh my god, how the crap? You're so fast.
It's Star Wars, bro.
I'm noodling around way too much.
No, I've done every single side mission. I've gotten almost every single collectible. I'm going out of the way and doing the fish. I am not mainlining the story by any means. I'm just
this is just your main thing. Yeah.
Have you already gotten I'm sure you guys have seen around the map if you played it, like those electrical conduits or whatever. You got to throw something in. Have you gotten that, Kyle?
Electrical conduits.
I've seen that there's something
BD1 or whatever you have to aim something at it and shoot it.
Oh yeah. You
got that? Okay, cool. Yeah, because I got that and I was like, this doesn't feel like a main story thing, and they added so much cinematics to collecting that part, collecting that tool. I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
I finally got that and backtracked all around to all those chests that I remember seeing that required that element or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they added so
I'm
much
at the
stuff
part where they want me to go to the next planet, but I'm just sticking around Kobo and just like doing all kinds of extra stuff. Exactly. But I will tell you that new droid that you meet, nicknamed Z, she's so fun. Like I like her a lot. Yeah. She's got a lot of add a lot of personality with these new characters they're bringing in. I like Bode. I like his character. Like I'm just so in on this game.
I've loved all the characters so far, and man, they really got to.
And really, the major story moment,
alien muscles, like in this, where it's like
the main story moment at the end of this planet, where
out of control
stuff happens. Oh my!
You hit that part where it's like, okay,
yeah,
where you get introduced to a character and you're like, is this the guy? And
so like early on in that area, you meet a character who looks like, oh, this could be like a local big bad or maybe a bigger bad, and it turns out that big bad is actually assisting what I'm assuming is the real big bad. And so I had that whole moment. I was like, dude, this is awesome. This is so epic.
It's a great story hook where you're like, cool, I'm in on all this.
Oh, I'm in on all this. I want to know what happened so bad. Yeah.
And dude, I can't wait for Tim to get to the part in Jeddah, which is the second planet that you're going to go to.
That's where they want to go next, yeah.
There's a main mission. Like when you first get to Jeddah, it's mainly about getting from A to B, and you can explore if you want, I guess, but you're not really equipped to do a lot yet. So it's really recommended you go back to Kobo and just follow that path.
Yeah,
but there is another mission in Jeddah that ends with this crazy, awesome set piece that's like Uncharted levels of incretible. It's so
out of this world. Yeah, by the end of it, I put my controller down and I go, wow. Like it really wowed me. Where I was just like, I gotta let that sit for a second. Yeah.
How do they pull that off? It's so crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like the fact that you're contrling most of it, it's not just like a cutscene. Like it's very it's good.
So involved.
Yeah, there's certainly moments where, because I'm just playing on normal difficulty, like I think most people are, and there are certainly moments where I'm like, oh yeah, this is tougher than a lot of licensed IP games tend to be. So
Very much so.
I have to like focus in, like, okay, I have to pay attention and dodge and block and use my abilities and stuff. So like but I don't get me wrong, I really enjoy that. But there are moments where I kind of forget. I'm just exploring. I'm like, it's almost like a movie that I'm experiencing as I'm exploring this whole world. And then all of a sudden I face one of those dumb red rhinos that I'm like, oh yeah, I have to pay attention a little bit because this thing will flatten me in a second if I don't.
Dude, I'll let my guard down and I'll get killed by regular B1 droids. Like just like, oh, they shot me too many times. I wasn't paying attention.
I'm just dead.
Like, and like you could kill them in one hit. You know, like just sometimes the game, if you're not in it, you know, like the game will push back pretty hard on you.
I'm doing the dual wielding, which means I take a lot more damage, but I can do a lot more damage, and I really like that one. That's the one I've really focused in on. And there's one of my favorite skills is when you unlock. I'm sure you guys have done this. You know, you can deflect laser bolts back at the enemies with all the lightsabers. With the dual wielding, you can actually unlock one where you can, if you time it right as a parry, it'll split it in half. Like one laser bolt and it'll shoot at two enemies at the same time. He'll actually go like this and kind of split it, and it'll go back at two different enemies.
That's pretty cool.
All right.
Apparently, the single wield, which is I guess we can call it classic stance. That one has that too, but that's like a little bit later in the skill tree.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, but I'm never going back to that stance. I'm just gonna be honest. Like I am so.
I'm just doing
I love the staff so much. It's so fast.
That's my secondary.
I love throwing that thing around. And I just unlocked a skill that like allows me to kind of do the same thing with the splitting. And then there's a fourth stance that you get that I just have not strayed from yet, even though I've unlocked all the stances by now.
The animations on all of them are so cool.
They're so different. They're like no stance feels the same at all, you know. So it's like I kind of get FOMO a little bit, where like I'll choose two because you can only bring two into battle, and I'll be like, oh, but you know what would have been really cool to use on this bad guy? This other stance that I didn't have right now, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it feels.
I wonder
good
why
to
they
kinda
don't let
long
you
for the
just
stuff you're not using.
switch to all the stances. Like why you can't like D-pad over or something like that. I'm wondering why they blocked it and they were like just two.
I guess for the same reason Hogwarts did it for the spells, where it's like, okay, you have like 50 spells, but you only have room for 24 or however many it is.
Now I would probably only use one, maybe a secondary one anyway, because of the way the skill tree works. Like I'm really only focusing on making one super strong while also leveling up my general health and stuff. But there are times when I'm like, oh, with all these guys shooting at me, it'd be nice to have the staff where I can just spin around and block all of them. But
feels so good.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a guy with a cannon and eventually you break the shield and he's like, ugh, and then he just dies immediately. It's so good.
So I still like what all the stances, of course, can do. I still like just little things like being able to pull a guy over to you and then just stab him and then toss him to the side.
That was my favorite part of Fallen Order, and I still do it. That's like my favorite. Like, yeah, you're pissing me off now. Come over here.
Or like the shield guys, you keep holding pull, and you'll eventually pull the shield off of him, and you can hit him with it right away. I
love when they audibly respond to you when you do that. They're like, "He broke my shield!" They get so flustered. There's another part too where like I was sneaking up on a cliff and the droids are just arguing or whatever about something, and I love Cal's responses later on where he's like, "Were they always programmed to bicker this much?" Like, and then I think one of the guys goes, "Maybe that's why they lost."
Yeah,
dude. When I was playing and my son was watching, and we were just talking about how cool it was, and I was exploring, and I just did force push on one of the little battle droids, one of the weaker ones, off the edge of a cliff in the forest. And as I pushed him and he's falling, he goes, "Destabilize!"
That's amazing.
All right, that's a nice detail.
So they did the Halo Infinite thing where they have like all the enemies just saying really funny stuff. I even got to there's a boss that's pretty much a meme, and this is all an optional. No, it's not optional, is it? Yeah, I think it's an optional part that I went through, where I ended up somewhere and a door opens and like this boss comes out with a health bar and it's just a laugh. Like when you see his name, you're like, this is stupid. And he didn't even need a health bar. It was just a joke. You'll see, and you'll probably end up seeing this circulating as a meme or whatever, and you'll be like, that's not real. It's real. So you'll see it eventually.
Yeah, no, Fallen Order had some of those really powerful, like actual powerful optional bosses and areas too. But I did like that stuff. It had just a little touch of Dark Souls / Elden Ring to it, where it's like you can go off the beaten path and face a super tough enemy, and you're probably gonna have to do it several times till you figure out their
I've
pattern.
done like probably 6 or 7 of them because you get bounties at one point from the Australian person who gives you attitude at the cantina, and then there's another person on Jeddah who is probably one of my favorite like characters to talk to. sister Task. I just love her backstory. It's so cool. And she'll give you like epic enemies that are like animals or whatever on Jedi.
Oh, okay.
And I think I already beaten all of the ones at the game.
Yeah, I just got to the second one, optional boss on Kobo. I think it's the second one. It's the green kind of poison frog thing, and I friggin' hate it. I hate it so much. So
there's been a couple enemies where I ran into where I got down all the way and then I got cheesed really bad at the end, and I dropped that thing down to story so quick, and I was like, nope, I am blowing through that, and like it's only when I get cheesed I don't lean on it too hard. But there have been a couple bad guys where I'm like, no, I don't like this area that I'm fighting in right now. I don't like the odds I have against.
I don't like this at all.
Yeah, you know those enemies that they're like the first kind of enemies.
That's a good point. I should do that.
That are like
just when you hit a wall.
Those camouflaged enemies that are like the very first enemies you encounter on Kobo.
Oh,
they come out of nowhere.
Yep.
That's the most annoying thing is when I had 2 of those big rhinos I was fighting, and I had all those camouflage enemies around me, and I'm like, oh my god,
they're like the weird little larva scorpions or whatever.
They just jump at you. Yeah. They're fun to kill. I could still summon them and just stab them.
When you slice them into all kinds of pieces. Oh, last thing I'll mention too with the dual wielding, I do love being able to toss 2 sabers. So you toss one, then you can follow up with the second one right away.
Oh, that's cool.
That's been one of my favorites.
In their chest, so some of them.
Oh, it's so cool. And then you just pull them right back. Oh, so fun.
On Jedi, by the way, I highly recommend doing the. There's a couple places that somebody there will tell you should go explore this area. Definitely go do it because it increases your perk slots, and that's going to be incredibly useful because some perks take up way too many slots. Like some take up 4. So I definitely recommend going and getting those.
And use those perks. They make a huge difference. When I equipped that first one, they give you about breaking. When you beat the Rancor, you get one where you can break shields. I think it is really quickly. Yeah. And that I noticed that right away with enemies I was fighting.
It's really made a difference in mine as well.
Yeah. I got one that's about more damage for throwing a lightsaber in because I use a staff. It helps.
That's smart. Yeah. Because even your triangle move is technically a throw.
Yeah, and then I have the skill where you hit triangle again when it comes back, and it just sends it around one more time. So
I just unlocked that.
You just like keep spinning a plate. You just keep it spinning.
I chose the staff as my set because I use single bladed just because I don't know, it just feels classic to me.
I don't ever use it. Why do I have it equipped? I still have it equipped. I don't ever use it.
You got to get rid of it then.
Yeah. What am I doing?
I finally said I was going to stick to the staff just because I like just the way that all the animations look and stuff like that.
Yeah, the animations look so
I just started putting points in that finally.
Yeah, that corkscrew attack where you dive forward just looks so awesome.
Yeah.
There's some really cool moves in this game, man.
All right. Well, I know we've talked about that one a lot, but I freaking love that game. We gave Octopath Traveler 2 twice as much time as this, so shut up, everybody. All right.
But I mean, it's the greatest RPG in the last decade, Tim. So
it is an excellent RPG, and this is one of the best action adventure games in the last decade. So how about that? Sorry.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Couple quick hits. I already talked about Death Retreat, that little Rogue Legacy like Halloween game.
I have the demo downloaded. There is a free demo out there.
It does have a demo if you want to try it on Steam. Thief Simulator 2. This is just a Tim game. All right. Maybe a Kyle game.
They made a second one of those games.
It's a different developer. It's just pretty much one guy, and English is not his first language. I can tell with some of the dialogue when a guy calls you. It's just.
You want to make Thief today?
No, he tried to say.
Sorry, I'm imagining the worst English.
He tried to say the phrase like "get out of there alive," and he said something. He just put the word "alive" in the middle somewhere. It was like "get out alive of there" or something. It was like something that just wasn't quite right.
Wow, that's funny.
So it's just not English as his first.
So they use the Redfall QA team.
It seems like it. And there's one guy making this game. It's basically the same game. It just looks a little better. There's new things you can do if you like Thief Simulator. That's all it is.
It's the guy that did. Is this the same guy that did? No, never mind. I'm looking at the publisher page now. Never mind.
It is a very kind of janky game, but I loved the first one. I spent way too much time in it. I think maybe only Kyle can relate to the idea of getting into a simulator game for no apparent reason. You just get hooked on it and you spend.
I got hooked on Weed Simulator 3 the other day, and it's about making a weed store. But like most of the game is not about that at all. It is. It's so funny. It's like Arcade Paradise where you're like. So there's a laundromat, like it just, I don't know. It just,
right.
So yes,
right.
I do 100% know what you mean by sometimes you just fall into a sim trap where you're just like, I never thought I'd be playing this, but I'm on hour 15 now, and here we are.
I played a little bit of, there's a prelude. So the prologue for Thief Simulator 2 is also free. It's kind of a demo. It gives you access to like the first couple missions. It's very much like the first game, like almost identical. I'm a little surprised that they're calling it 2. It just feels like a remaster, but Mega City Police is another game that's coming out. It has a little bit of a like bullet hell kind of top down old school shooter game. A little bit Hotline Miami, but not one hit kill. You have a health bar. But when you die, you go back to the police station. You can pick. There's a whole bunch of different officers you can pick from. Like there's a scout, there's a cyborg, looks like RoboCop. There's like a standard sergeant guy, and they all have different skills and abilities. But it's very much like a 32-bit looking game. Kind of looks like a arcade.
They framed the screen like you're watching one of those old CRT TVs.
Yeah, you can. That's
like
it's default to that. You can turn that off, but it actually has rounded edges where it looks like an arcade CRT.
That's so funny.
So they're definitely going for the retro.
It's a pretty
vibe.
common thing. People actually stream that way, like on purpose.
Yeah,
like they'll actually add the filter to make it look like CRT.
They're called tryhards. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
That's Mega City Police. And then real quick, just 2 movies that I watched that I liked both of them a lot. One was called Whiplash, which everyone's talked about for years. I finally watched it and I love it. J.K. Simmons is just a beast of a performance.
Oh, the drummer.
Why
Yeah.
Why are you looking down at the floor? There's not a Mars bar down there.
Man,
I love.
It's a brutal movie. Like I was trying to work while watching it, and I didn't get anything done because I was so captivated by it.
Yes,
Not my tempo.
And oh man, like I'm scared of him now. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
I've
like,
seen clips
he's like
and he's
a nice
terrifying.
guy in person. Like,
And
it's so weird.
Jeff was
now.
correct. It has one of my favorite final, like the final scene is the climax of the movie, and it's the finale of the movie. It's just unreal. It's just so well done.
There's
One
no
of my favorite movie
resolution.
endings ever.
But yeah, you're right. There isn't, but also kind of there is. Like I felt
There
fully
is,
sad,
but
like,
it's implied, but you don't see
yes,
it.
because there's so much tension in that moment, you don't get to see the aftermath of any of it. So yeah, but it's so good, man.
And you don't know whether Paul Reiser, who's like just a great movie dad,
He is a great
you don't
movie
know
dad.
whether he's like in awe or if he's
Or
like
angry,
scared,
disturbed.
Yeah, it's like there's so many unanswered questions that you.
Yeah. So Whiplash, so good. I think it's on Amazon.
It sounds like a Whiplash.
Prime. It's on Prime Video for free if you have Prime, and it is very good. And then I watched The Mauritanian on Netflix, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Mainly just because it gives I think, eye-opening, maybe not totally accurate, I don't know, but an eye-opening view into the aftermath of 9/11 with Guantanamo Bay and treatment of prisoners and and the law surrounding that. Like, what kind of rights do they have, and all that kind of stuff. And I thought it was generally pretty well made, a little bit weird pacing, but generally a pretty well made movie that I enjoyed.
So, I liked it.
Feel good hit of the spring.
It was not a feel good movie whatsoever.
Oh, no, okay, I'm sorry.
I like that.
My assumption.
That specific prisoner.
I was like, that sounds happy.
That specific prisoner was a unique case because, I mean, I'm sure there were many prisoners like that.
Oh, it's based on the book he wrote, so yeah, it is based on.
Yeah, but he specifically was like, I didn't know any of this stuff, and they just kept me there, like, and about him fighting for his freedom, basically.
And they actually at the end during the credits scenes is the real guy, and like you get to see him talking about stuff and interacting with family and all that. It was just very, I don't know.
Cool.
It's a good cast too, I think.
It was a good cast. I thought it was well done. Jeff, what about you? Your quick
I finished Bramble the Mountain King, which is that like Nordic fairy tale type game that's like a platformer, but there are actually boss fights, but the fights really entail mostly evading until you find a window to throw something at the boss. And some of the boss fights, and again, I'm using that term loosely, are very epic. Like you're fighting giants. It's really cool. And also makes no sense because you're a child. But and you're a miniature child at that.
Sure.
But yeah, the scope of it, like the scale of everything, it was so freaking epic, and the score is amazing. Like I could, oh man, it would be too spoilery, but I could just, if you guys don't care enough to try it, I could just send you the boss fight and you'll hear how amazing the score is during that, because that's when I was like, this is so freaking cool.
I love a surprise soundtrack.
It's the kind of game that
yeah,
exactly, Dan. It's the kind of game that you don't expect a good soundtrack. So I love it when it's like, what is this?
Very cinematic.
That's what Death's Door was for me.
Like they do a different version of the that very old song, that very old classic song that's like that song. They do a very different version of that song, like pacing, like the metronome or whatever. The BPM is very different, and they space out the measures differently. It's
all right, cool.
It was really cool. Can't say enough about that game. It's being as good as it is. Like it's probably going to be. It may not be in my 10 at the end of this year. This year's a little stupid, but I'll definitely be talking about it in terms of like, I guess, a swimming in sevens experience, because it's not like it's the smoothest game you'll play, but I just love that type of story.
Interesting.
And then I watched 2 shows. One of them I'm almost done with, and it's the Pete Davidson show on Peacock. I don't have a weird hate boner like everybody else seems to about this guy. He's not always funny. Don't get me wrong. I don't think anybody's always funny, but sometimes the way he tells stories is funny. And that translates to the show too. Like the show, when it's funny, it's ridiculously funny. But when it's like trying to be funny and it's not, it's like, you know,
bummer. Yeah.
But the cast is just not. It's not just Pete Davidson. He roped in everybody he could think of in this show. Like Shane Gillis plays a recurring role, and he is so funny. Just naturally, like as an actor, I've never seen him act in anything before.
I've only seen him do his sketches, like on his sketch show.
Oh, I think you showed me one sketch.
Gillian Keeves, and he is actually pretty funny in those sketches. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why he got cast on SNL until they found some old tweets I didn't like.
Gotcha. And that's why he was, because I think Pete Davidson did meet him when he was cast, and like they bonded and stuff. So.
That was like Shane Gillis talks about that a lot, where that was the lowest point of his life, where he got hired and then fired almost immediately as things surfaced, like something that he was just being funny, but they found it to be racially insensitive. So it's out.
That's a kind of a bummer on his part. Like, I mean, damn. Anyway,
I know.
Anyway, the reason that the show, I was like, I got to check this out is, well, first off, it's kind of based on his life, and so that means a lot of famous people are going to be coming through. But his grandfather's played by Joe Pesci, and how do you get that guy to act in anything? Because he's mostly retired. Like the last thing he did was Irishman, and the last thing that he did before that was, I don't know. He's been retired. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I didn't know he was like full on. I didn't know he was like retired.
Yeah, pretty much. So the fact that he came back, I was like, well, I got to watch it. Why would he come back if it sucked? And it's pretty good. And the other show that I just started watching, only 2 episodes are out right now, but it's called Silo. It's on Apple. I think I got Kyle in to watch that too. But it's
pretty mad how good it is. I really hope it was going to be bad, so I could be like, I'm not going to watch that.
Exactly. I don't even know.
I'm pretty bad.
No, it's really good. So
at the end of the first episode, I was like, no way. Did they really just do that? And like, I got to see the next episode then, I guess.
So what is this even about? What?
It's like picture like a Fallout Vault TV show. Where like the world is like dispensed in some way. You can't live out there. Maybe it's irradiated. Don't really go into it. But everyone lives in this like silo, and you can't go outside of the silo. And within the silo, there's this like hierarchy of stuff going on, and you know,
you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
It's Fallout Vaults. I mean, that's what.
It's pretty much what it is. Except we're at the point now in the show, much like with Fallout, when they start the story, they have been doing this for decades. People are like, we don't know where these silos came from. We just live here, and
which is funny.
These are the rules that we've had.
Something like this is being created because there's the Fallout show also coming out.
Yeah, right. They beat him to the punch. Yeah, but there's there's a story beat that's basically like, something happened where basically all of history was erased, and we don't really know what's going on.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So
I like stories like this, and I know people always refer to Fallout. I get it, because in the gaming world, that's going to be the most common. But there's other stuff, like there's the book series, and they made one movie out of it. The City of Ember had a similar storyline to that. Yeah, and then it had Bill Murray in it, actually. He's so great. And then what was that game? We just talked about it last week or the week before. Eastward.
Oh, Eastward, yeah.
Has, again, also similar vibes to that too. So I like that.
True.
Yeah, I think you guys will like this one. I mean, the cast too is kind of nuts. Like Rebecca Ferguson's the lead, but you'll recognize a lot of people on the show.
All right, yeah.
Rashida Jones,
Common's in it, guys.
And Perkins shows up.
Right?
Common, the best actor of our generation. Common.
Actor of our generation. Common. You know,
he definitely was not the worst part in Smoking Aces. Let me just say that.
Dude, that movie is great.
I love that movie.
Is great.
He's so corny in that movie.
Oh, of course. Sure.
I thought he brought down the first. Was it the second John Wick movie that he was in?
Yeah, I liked his action sequences. I just wish it was anybody else.
I didn't like him in that at all. I just couldn't stop thinking that's Common. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Just the way that he talks, he's like, I have to long pause before I say something.
Yeah.
If I stare at like,
and he does that in every movie or project he does. Like, it's
faster.
So
crazy.
They're like, hey, Common, stare at someone like you want to murder them. Oh, you're already doing that. Never mind.
Never mind. You're good.
All right, action.
Give me happy. Now give me sad.
Same face. All right, let's move ahead.
Same feelings, man.
That's all I got.
If him and Kristen Stewart were in a movie together, they would get nowhere. Nothing would happen. And just stare each other down. Like, Derek, what about you? Any other quick hits outside of stuff we've talked about?
Well, I didn't say anything about Jedi, so I'll say something real quick. I'm a little over 8 hours into Jedi Survivor. Really enjoying it. Of course, obviously, I'm making Redfall my main, but I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, I just want Redfall to be done so I can play the game I want to play, which is Jedi Survivor. So I'm really enjoying it, and I liked Jedi Order, but I definitely like this one way better. I think the changes they made in this one are just, it's bigger, it's better, it's badder, and that's what I wanted, and that's what they delivered. I'm still playing. I know I don't talk about it as much, but I'm still playing Disney Speedstorm. In fact, last night I unlocked 2 characters, Hercules, which is the one that's been driving me nuts, and then I'm forgetting his name, the dude from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, Jack Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow. So I unlocked them too. So I'm still really enjoying the game. It does get a little more confusing with the more characters you unlock, like trying to level and manage all of them. But overall, I'm having a lot of fun with that one. And then I'm still playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. I'm at the end. I'm at the end of chapter 4. So I'm not at the very end. I've still got some stuff to do, but I've hit the last area. Like, it's the last area based off the cutscenes and stuff. They're like, we're going here. This is the end, basically. So that's where I'm at. I've said enough about that game, but I really just wish people would play it because it is the ultimate JRPG, in my opinion. And the DLC is actually, to me, up the game. Maybe not story-wise, but at least combat-wise. Absolutely loving all the boss fights. They're very, very epic. And then I think that's all the stuff I'm playing. But I did watch Dune. I gave Dune a second viewing. I think it was because the first viewing I was probably distracted. I don't remember anything except a lot of talking and a few deaths that I was like, oh, that mattered. So honestly, when I watched it the second time, I felt like I was watching a different movie. And I even while I was watching, I was like, dude, this is like Star Wars. So I did a little research. I'm like, oh, Star Wars took from these guys. Yeah. So that's why it feels like
everything.
Yeah, so that was like, that's why I feel like this is Star Wars. I still don't okay, so let me say this. Like, the world and the characters, I'm all in. I'm going to go see Dune 2 in the theaters day one if I can. So I liked it enough to say that I'm going to do that.
Yeah, IMAX, yeah.
My only issue is I still, for the first movie, I'm hoping the second movie will address it. I just didn't feel like there was enough interesting, like action scenes. I thought the few they had were just kind of like, oh, okay, that's okay. But that wasn't that interesting. But as far as world building, characters, it hooked me. It got me.
It looks like from the trailer, like you're gonna get more action this time.
That's what I mean.
And they're doing a really good adaptation of the book. And the first half of the book is not about the war, and the second half of the book is. So you can probably
so
surmise
all about
the second
world.
movie is gonna be about the actual war and everything.
Yeah.
Kyle, do you think we should expect how many parts for this series that they're doing?
Dune is going to finish up the first book in 2 movies. He wants to do Dune, Messiah, and Children of Dune, which those might be 1 or 2 movies apiece, but I don't know if he'll get.
But so we'll at least have the first book covered with these 2.
He will, for sure. Like that's
cool.
That's all the plans for now. But like he
said he wanted to do a trilogy, but he might end up looking at the material for Messiah and the Children and be like, this is too much. I got to do another movie out of this.
I've heard stuff that third movie was going to be Child of Messiah in the same movie, which I'm like, okay, yeah, right.
Good luck.
Or it was just going to be Messiah and not Children of Dune, or whatever the second one was. I forget. So it's less like it just kind of depends on. Okay. If this movie's a big hit, then we're probably going to get 5 more. If it's not a big hit, then this will probably be the last one.
And it's kind of a miracle that we even got 2 because the first one came out on HBO Max and theaters, and this is the first solely theatrical run that Dune is getting.
It was a COVID movie, so it's really hard to tell if it did.
Exactly. Well. How did it actually do? We'll find out.
All right, Dan, over to you. Any other quick hits games you're playing? I know you're doing some Xenogears, or we're doing some Xenogears on your.
Yeah, I'm doing Xenogears. That game is So I got to an underground cave area, and I fought like the first big boss in the game. And man, it's an old RPG, so like obviously it's not handholdy like games nowadays. But like I don't remember as a kid with say the Final Fantasies having too much of a hard time this early on in a game. Like
I got wiped in that game a lot. I remember when I played it.
Yeah, so there's this first boss called Calamity, And like, so first off, I wasn't even I just wasn't getting the you can upgrade your gears, the mechs that you pilot, and the engine specifically has two components to it. It raises your attack and your fuel, or it can, but the attack amount is called output, but I didn't know that. So when I was looking at the menus, I just saw like output, and then I saw fuel amount, and I was just like, all right, well, the fuel amount's not changing, so I guess I don't need to upgrade this, but not realizing that it actually was going to raise my attack, because I was fighting the dude and doing like barely any damage. I was like, what the hell's going on? So then I upgraded that. But then I still wasn't quite getting the combat really, because it doesn't explain the combat to you. And it's almost a little bit like Chrono Cross, where there's like weak normal and like strong attacks, but like you can actually over time learn like combos in the game. So like if you hit triangle, then it raises your attack level to 1, which then unlocks doing like an attack level 1 combo type. There's terms that in the game, but I'm just trying to simplify it. So like once you hit attack level 1, then when you hit triangle again, then it opens up where if you hit square, it does like this combo move. So then that actually maximizes the damage. But I didn't know that, because nothing in the game is telling you that that's a thing. So like I was just like, all right, like the people in the chat, they were people who were very familiar with the game. I was like, all right, like I'm fine with you guys. Like, can you break it down for me? Because I just not get it. Like, and yeah, once I got it, I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. So then yesterday I streamed yesterday, which was after that fight, so it was like the next portion of the game, and I have my head wrapped around it. But basically what I'm trying to say is the game is really cool. It's just really complex for like an old PS1 RPG.
Yeah.
Like, much more than I anticipated.
Yep.
And I just wasn't expecting that. But I'm digging the seriousness of the game, the vibes. Like again, the first like 30 minutes of the game, it's like holy shit, like a bunch of murder happens. So that's cool.
I do like the lead character too. Faye, isn't it?
Faye, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I like
he's really cool. Yeah, his whole like way he fights is martial arts, and also the mech that he pilots is also there's no weapon for his mech. The mech also fights with its hands and feet, so it's also using martial arts. So yeah, it's just it is very cool. It's a very cool game. I don't like the camera perspective of it though. It's my one main gripe. It's like a top-down-ish isometric view, and it's just really kind of disorienting to try to figure out, like, because you can't really see forward because the camera's kind of at an upward angle. So
kind of reminds me of the limitations of the PS1 back then. You know, when they were building that stuff, we have 2 options for you. You know what I mean? They didn't have a whole lot of options.
Well, it's like they were trying to do something different, because I mean, you have like the other Final Fantasy games where it's just like pre-rendered backgrounds, and you are generally seeing kind of around you, and it's not too difficult to navigate. I mean, maybe there's something hidden around a corner and you don't quite see, you know, like that you need to go around that corner. But yeah, I don't know. It is very cool. I am enjoying it.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And
that's a classic. That's probably fun and frustrating to go back to, because as you're like describing mechanics, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot all about all of that.
Yeah. Exactly. And then I beat the 3rd Guardian Beast in Breath of the Wild, finally.
Nice.
So that's cool. So I got 1 left. I'm in the desert right now, so I'm like in the process about to go fight the big sand dude. That thing tropping around with its lightning attacks, whatever.
So you did the whole like cross-dressing thing?
Yeah, well, I had done that before. I already had all my lady gear. I had my lady gear.
Okay.
So but now I'm back there, and I actually talked to the whatever she was, the like princess or whatever that girl is like, oh hey, go find a
Link
thunder
is
helm.
gorgeous though. So
he is. He's very pretty.
Pretty lady.
He's very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a lady.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just glad that I like jumped back in, because I'm remembering why I really enjoyed that game at the time, so much so that it was distracting me from Horizon Zero Dawn when that had come out. It was just so much fun, and it still is really fun. So I'll finish that soon. And then I started Succession, which I did mention in the chat, which I know Jeff was
good.
Like,
Oh,
you started that.
Get some.
That show is one of those shows.
Get the optics on
A lot
that.
of just a lot of shitty people. There's a lot of just bad people.
I
in that
watched
show.
like the first 20 minutes, and when I saw McCulkin or whatever, his brother,
Yeah.
I was
Kieran
like,
Culkin.
Yeah,
He's
this
so
guy's a
good in the
douche.
show. Oh my god.
It's a great.
Such a
No, it
douche.
is a great show, dude.
He's
It's
had some
very
good
well
roles in other
acted.
stuff too.
very interesting. There's just a lot of.
He just looks like a douche, and then he acts like a douche.
Everybody,
he's perfectly cast, honestly.
Yeah.
As soon as he walked on the screen, I was like, "Oh my god, this guy just."
I love.
He has a very short-lived role in Fargo, the show, in one of those seasons.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's because he's not in it for super long.
But Jeremy Strong plays Kendall Roy, who's like, I guess, views himself as the person that would be in line to be succeeding Brian Cox's character. Yeah. And you'll notice after watching, especially if you're binge watching it, you'll notice the intricacies in his performance where he's like, let's okay, sure, okay. You'll just notice everybody has the same tics, like too, where he's like, sure, no.
There's the back and forth going on, and he's just like, no, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be, and then it just and there's just it's all this inner family like turmoil going on, and
Shiv is like the actor that plays Shiv, Sarah Snook. Kyle and I know who she is from Predestination. She's amazing in that movie. But now that she's like the internet's darling because her character is just so freaking enjoyable to watch. She's the redhead who's constantly giving the craziest facial expressions. She's so funny.
I love Tom and Greg. Their dynamic is
hilarious. Oh my god, Tom is such an
These are the whitest names you guys are naming.
Because they're all evil white people in this show.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no black characters in this show. I'm done.
I mean, so far.
No, it's Tom and Greg. Get out of here.
Yeah.
But like the way that, because Greg just seems so like he's not
he's
there.
The nephew. He's the nephew of Brian Cox's character, and he is so naive and like.
Yep.
He takes everything that Tom is like his mentor,
very
like,
seriously.
He's such a shithead to him, and like he'll take every joke Tom says seriously. Like, you really want me to go in there and like take a shit in that guy's desk? It's like, no.
All right, we gotta wrap it up.
Yeah,
although
so
we could keep talking about it for a long time. Kyle, I think any quick hits you have, but also I think we need to institute a no recommendation May for the rest of the month. You can no longer bring up any games or shows or movies that none of us have seen yet. Right? We talked about this in the chat. No more
okay. That's right. Yeah, we're. What if we called it something else? Oh, like kind of like a No Nut November, but for recommendations.
But for recommendations. It's like, you know what? We need to institute Prima Nocta. Wait, is that what that is? No.
It is now.
That's right.
I love that.
Wait a minute.
In the office.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. I did not. He's like, I did not know what that was. I
did not know what that meant.
I'm totally kidding. I love giving and getting recommendations, so I'm totally kidding. But go ahead, Kyle.
I chimed in on the few things that I shared that other people were doing. So the only other thing that I started Future Redeemed expansion as well, and Derek was right. It's really good. That's it.
Oh, on Xenoblade. Okay,
Xenoblade. That's it. The end.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you guys. This has been good. I'm really curious to see how things play out with Microsoft moving forward. So the next we really will hear from them, I think, is going to be in about a month, in about 5 weeks.
That'll
so
be good.
We'll back on that and hear.
But in the meantime, Nintendo gets to take the floor, and
Nintendo's about to take the floor.
Our lives. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Jimmy told me that we're doubling down on the bullshit. Like we're not messing around. Like we're.
Okay.
That's what Jimmy said.
What he told me. Yeah, he said we're doubling down on the bullshit. We're not.
Thanks again, Jim. Doesn't make sense, but thanks, buddy.
Like,
wash your hands after being in those gloves, buddy.
Trying to write a song for Limp Bizkit. I don't understand what you're talking about. We're doubling down on the bullshit.
He is over there celebrating so much. Last thing I'll say, we didn't say this earlier. Jimmy he did such a good job of making sure that Sony didn't sound too powerful and strong, and they sounded weak, and like they were like, "Oh, we're just poor little Sony, and we this isn't fair." And so now I think Phil's trying to do the same thing. Like, well, we're in third place, and we can't win. We can't win.
Sure,
we can't. It's like, all right, guys.
Ah, that's like a good point. I'm not saying that's why he did it, but
everyone's. It's like this.
He is very passive aggressive. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, "Guys, did you see my interview? I said we're in third."
Oh, I'm sure he immediately sent the MP4 of that interview straight to the EU people or the UK people. Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you guys for being here and listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.